What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Kinda Anime. I'm one of your hosts, Barrett Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by the Lemillion to my Sun Eater, Snowbike Mike Howard. Mikey, how are you doing today?
That's my dude, Barrett. You're my guy. The One Piece is real.
Ooh.
Hello, anime watchers, enjoyers, and lovers out there. It's Mike and Barrett. We're back again.
Yeah, we're back again.
We're back again, bro.
I know it's always, it always feels too long since the last episode of Kinda Anime, but I'm glad to be back, hanging out with you. How you been?
Good, Barrett. You know what? It's been a fun one. It's been a little bit of a journey. It's been a different vibe for my anime watching lately.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it on my One Piece update. But you know what? I haven't had the kick in the butt to watch some One Piece since we decided to fire up this episode or some anime in general. So this has been a nice, hey, let's get you back in. And you know what? Because of this and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, I'm back, Barrett. I'm back. I'm happy to say I'm back.
Some would say he's in his bag. A fun, unique thing. I've got a couple of updates before I get into some housekeeping. I got to go to my first anime convention this last weekend, which was really neat, really cool.
That.
Yeah, I've been to a few conventions, more so on the working side, right? I've worked a couple Comic-Cons, worked a couple E3s, but I've never really hung out on a show floor, right? I'm usually in a war room for IGN when I was back working at IGN.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to friend of the show, Matthew David Rudd. Many know him as the voice of Panda from Jujutsu Kaisen. Others would know him as Baru from Blue Lock. Because I believe you watched some Blue Lock last season.
Blue Lock.
Last year, yeah. Friend of the show, big homie, someone who I always hit up whenever I see a big punk show coming to the Bay Area. He's always the first person I hit up. I'm like, hey, you want to go to a punk show? And I always try to get him into the mosh pit, and he rightfully declines to go into the mosh pit. But yeah, he hit me up this last weekend and was like, hey, there's an anime convention in the Bay Area called Anime Impulse. He was one of the talent who was brought in to do signings throughout the weekend. He was like, hey, we're homies. I wanted to kind of bring you with me and kind of be my handler and help me run the booth, take pictures and all that stuff. Oh. Yeah, it was a fun time. It was definitely a different convention vibe for myself, right? Because I'm always going to the big show ones, right? Like an E3 where it's all these new games, Comic-Con, where it's all these new movies being announced and all this stuff. It was interesting to go to a local, or a smaller convention that's more focused around oh my God, Mike, if you went to this convention this last weekend, it would have been tough for you. You would have swiped the card on so much.
I know.
There's so many cool prints from artists. I just got this shirt, Cowboy Bebop shirt from one of the booths. I also bought a really cute Mob from Mob Psycho 100.
I saw that.
Kind of doll plushie thing that was not usually something I would buy, but he was so adorable. And as I was picking up this shirt, I saw him out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, he's too cute that I can't not pick him up.
You got me, Bear. You got me all uptight because yes, I missed out on it.
Yeah.
And then you were going down the list of Mike would swipe the card, and I'm like, I'm trying my best. I'm all right. But then you brought up the t-shirt, and I want anime t-shirts.
Yeah.
I want more anime clothing pieces in my life, and I don't have them.
I just bought it.
You have some great ones.
Yes. I always try to get something new
jealous.
for each episode of Kinda Anime, which is nice that we don't do this show as often, because that would become real bad real fast. And so, yeah, it was a fun show. It was also partially a K-pop convention too.
Yes.
So Alyssa came the second day, and she was all in. Someone that she follows that makes binders for collecting K-pop cards and stuff like that.
Oh, I like that.
She had her eye on a special binder for a while, and this person was at this convention, so she's like, I'm gonna go buy that
big win.
Yeah, that binder.
Did they have the dances? Because I've been really practicing my touch dance.
So they were doing a lot of dances, a lot of competition, fun party dance stuff. A lot of K-pop was being played that Alyssa definitely recognized. I definitely recognized because I listened to a lot of K-pop with Alyssa. So yeah, it was a fun show. It was fun to always, as always, to hang out with the homie Matthew David Rudd, who's one of you, KFBFs. His name is on the Patreon wall over here. Yeah, he's an old school kind of funny fan.
How did it go? Did you have fun with him?
Oh yeah,
People
of course.
excited to see him.
Oh yeah.
Was he doing does he break into voices? Does he just keep it as himself, say what up? Like, how do you make it fun? You know what I mean?
So yeah, to make it fun, because Matt is definitely a fun guy. He's always encouraging people to kind of come out of their shell and come say hi and all that stuff. If you ever saw like a Yuta cosplay, Yuta from Jujutsu Kaisen 0, a question just within context of Jujutsu Kaisen 0. At one point, Panda asks Yuta in the movie, Yuta, do you prefer big boobs or small boobs? And so, maybe there was a Yuta cosplayer that maybe at one point was shouted at, Yuta, do you like big boobs or small boobs? And and Matt's always having fun. And he recognized someone who was in a blue lock kind of cosplay, and people were really excited about that.
I like that.
Yeah. And so, he's always having fun, just trying to, just engaging with people and being a friendly face and just a good friend. Yeah. And I got to meet a lot of people, which was really cool because, they brought in a few amount of voice actors. So I got to meet a few people. I'm just going to list off everybody I named that I met because, I met Todd Habercorn, who is Ling from Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. If you don't remember, Ling is the person that Greed takes over eventually to become the second version of Greed. He is also the Drifter from Destiny, which is really neat. Okay. I put him onto Balatro because we were talking about.
Watch out about to miss out on his signings if he starts playing Balatro. That's
well, he was already talking about playing games on his phone, and I was like, hey, there's a great game where you only pay $10 for it once, and then it's just a really fun deck building poker game.
Yeah.
And so I put him onto that. I also met Howard Wang for a brief second, who is I forget how to say this character's name. Langa from Skate the Infinity, our blue-haired boy from Skate the Infinity.
No.
Yeah, and I hyped him up. I was like, hey, most importantly, you're in one of the biggest anime the last 5 years, according to Mike Howard and Barrett Courtney, because we love Skate the Infinity.
I looked at Kevin A. Sachs last night, and I was like, man, I miss Skate the Infinity. And he laughed at me, and I was like, that's my
We need a season 2. I think they announced a season 2 at one point, and we just don't know when that's coming. I might mess up some names here. I apologize profusely. Inaris Quinones, who voices Mirko from My Hero Academia. I met her for a brief second. That was awesome. AJ Beckles, who is in an anime that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes.
That's a great last
Ken
name.
Takakura from Dandadan. Hyped him up for a second. I was like, hey, I know there's only 2 episodes out, but y'all have been killing it so far.
That's a star on the rise.
Oh, yeah.
That's like a Ryan Colt Levy when Ryan becomes Chainsaw Man.
Levy. We have to remember. Yes,
you. And it's like, oh, Ryan's about to blow up.
Yeah.
Like, that's how that's
AJ is definitely going to be big on the scene. Okay. Sean Chiplock, who voices Rivali from The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and I don't know if he's actually in Tears of the Kingdom, but Breath of the Wild for sure. Lauren Landa, who voices Annie in Attack on Titan. She was lovely. She's a good friend of Matt's, and so we talked to her a bunch. Ray Chase, who, funny enough, we just had Jason Schreier in our studio today. Ray Chase does the audiobooks, I believe, for Jason's books. Cool. But he's also Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen, Cyclops in X-Men 97.
Whoa, no way.
Oh, yeah. And then Tengen, Lord Tengen from Demon Slayer, which is really cool.
That's
and then
a roster.
Shout out to Greg Chun. Very, just absolute awesome person, just very friendly, very nice. Talked to him a good amount. Plays Lord Muzan in Demon Slayer. Yu Nanba from Yakuza Like a Dragon. He's like, I think, one of the best friends, right? Yeah. He's like part of your party. Yeah.
Number, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
currently replaying that game for Roger by the end of the year, so I know that well.
And something I wish I knew when I met Greg was that he also voices Moore in the recently released Metaphor ReFantagio. Moore is a pretty big character. He's like that game's Igor.
Damn.
And if I had known that when I met Greg, I would
Man,
totally
you're hanging out with all the stars.
Oh, yeah. We also had... I also met Mark Witten, who's Rengoku from Demon Slayer, and then very quickly Xanth Win, who voices Haru in Persona 5. And so it was an incredible weekend.
Yeah.
Hung out with Matt both Saturday and Sunday, and just had a blast. Just us sitting around, joking, just hanging out, catching up, all that stuff. And then
best
obviously
cosplays. What did you see?
There was a really good, again, we're going to talk about Dandadan in a second. There was a really good Okurun, what is it, the Turbo Granny, where he's like kind of half Turbo Granny, like kind of him, his like sick, like outfit. There was a really impressive cosplay of that.
Okay.
Shout out to, there was a cosplayer for Rika from Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Rika is like the like kind of like curse monster that Yuta has, and that's like his childhood best friend and someone he fell in love with. Really impressive cosplay of that. And then I'm trying to think of some other ones. There was someone who like dressed as like a really cool like Goron from like the Legend of Zelda, and he had like the Goron like hammer from the Zelda games and stuff.
Shout out.
A lot to name, but yeah, the Bay Area definitely brought it for the cosplays. Yeah,
that's a fun. Yeah, that was one of those where it's like it's just kind of happening. And Kevin A. Sex, my buddy, was like, "Yo, I'm gonna go check
Kevin
this
A.
out."
Sex
It's
as well.
Oh, okay.
I saw him from across the way, and I pointed at him, and I got him to come
That's
over.
crazy. That's so cool.
And so yeah, I saw him the first day, and I was like, "Oh, bring Mikey tomorrow." Like, Matt has a he voices a character in One Piece, and he has the book where his character first comes in, and he signed it for you, and he's like, "I've got this book for Mike." And Kevin was like, "I'll hit him up. I'll see if he comes by." Obviously, Mike did not come by the second day, but Kevin did come back the second day, bought a print from Matt and had Matt sign it, and had him sign it with Mike Sucks. So.
It's so cool. Your boy Mike had a long weekend.
Yeah, you had a fun weekend.
Party Mike came out.
Party Mike came out for sure. Well, enough about all. Or actually, there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about before.
I know
we get
the
into
audience can't see this, but this print is great.
Yeah,
it's
Panda
with
Panda
the backpack with the
with
JJK
backpack,
kids
yeah,
in there.
like carrying the
so
kids.
So cute.
I believe Matt did that print himself because he was into like art and stuff before he got into voice
that's
acting.
Sick. Yeah,
so
this
yeah,
is
a few
really
of the
cool.
prints that he has, if you ever see him at anime conventions, a few of the prints that he has are ones that he did originally.
That's dope. How much? Yeah. What did the table look like? How many prints was he selling? How many did
he
offer?
had a decent amount.
Like?
Yeah, he had a decent amount, all from like varying shows. The original ones that he did were primarily Panda, and then Baru from Blue Lock. And then a few other characters, and those were like commissioned from other artists and stuff like that. So he had a good amount, and not all of them we put out on the table. We kind of like held some back, and if like someone asked about a certain character, we would have that in the back.
That's fun.
And so yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a great weekend, Barrett.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. And now before we get into housekeeping, the last thing, since the last episode of Kinda Anime, both My Hero and Jujutsu Kaisen have ended in their manga forms. Which is kind of crazy to think about. And I was just thinking about, I think like yesterday or the other day, of like, damn, it really feels like we're coming up on the end of a generation of anime, right? We'll always have the big three, which I would classify as Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto.
Okay.
If I'm wrong on that, please definitely be cool about it in the comments below. But then I feel like you have like your kind of generational like big three and stuff like that. And with My Hero ending next year, Jujutsu Kaisen I feel like only has like a maybe 2 seasons. Demon Slayer's ending with a couple of movies. Like, oh man, like there's like what is the next generation? And I quickly thought, well, we saw Kaiju number 8 earlier this year, last year, right?
Good, yeah.
We obviously have Chainsaw Man, which had a great first season last year.
Chainsaw Man's gonna bring it for sure.
Chainsaw Man's gonna bring it, and then the new one, Dandadan, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes here.
It's like sports. It's like seeing some of your favorite players that you grew up with and were like the big names in sports, slowly like getting a little older, now retiring, and like
who are the new kids on the block?
Exactly. Like who is going to be the new Steph Curry, LeBron James? You know what I mean? Like who knows?
Bronny.
Bronny? You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm excited to see what animes capture you next, what books blow up,
and just capture like the grand like audience.
Yeah,
next,
this
right?
Fun.
And like what pops out of like the anime bubble to get people like Roger or Andy to like really pay attention to, right? And so that's what I'm really interested to see.
Shout out to My Hero for being that for me.
Yeah.
Right, like I think
100%.
everybody, the cool one in the comments below, you should be leaving the ones that did that for you, right? Like, what is that one? And yeah, shout out to My Hero for being that for me. Of like, oh, I'll turn this on, and now all of a sudden the snowball has been built and we're rolling. That's
and we started talking about in streams, which then evolved into us doing this show.
Talking about anime.
And speaking of which, remember this is Kinda Anime, your home for all things anime here at Kinda Funny. It's been a short run for us in 2024, since this will be our second and final episode of the year, where we will talk about the hottest anime of the year, the new My Hero Academia movie, and discuss the second half of My Hero Season 7, along with a special interview with the English voice actors for Endeavor, Dabi, and Shoto.
Did you hear that? That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Crazy, man.
We're kind of recording things kind of all out of order, so I've not done that interview yet, and let me tell you, very nervous, very nervous. Bit of housekeeping for you. If you're here because you can't find the episode on podcast services, that's because we are condensing our podcast feeds here at Kinda Funny. From now on, any screencasts, including Kinda Anime, will be found on the Kinda Funny In Review podcast feeds. That was just to kind of help the audience, if they're looking at shows to cut down on, right? Screencast being a bit more of an irregular show for us. We felt it made a bit more sense to have all of our movie and TV show talk in one podcast feed, right? And so, we'll be on the In Review podcast feed from here on
I go to my Apple Podcast, I go, why do I got 17 different Kinda Funny podcasts? How do we condense it?
Make it easier for our audience to find us, to make it easier for new audiences to come in.
I like that.
Exactly. Now, I want to thank everyone who is a Kinda Funny member on both Patreon and YouTube, who get all of our shows ad-free, have the ability to watch our afternoon podcasts live as we record them, and get an exclusive daily multimedia experience known as Greg Way. The membership allows us to do more niche, passion-driven shows just like Kinda Anime, so your support means a lot to us. It also means a lot if you're one of our Patreon producers. This month, we've got Drummer Boy, Casey Andrew, James Hastings, Nathan Lamoth, and Carl Jacobs, who also get to watch our shows ad-free. And speaking of ads, Kinda Anime is brought to you by New World Eternum, Phasmophobia, Shady Rays, and Marvel Snap, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, Mikey, I've been putting off talking about the hottest anime of 2024, and I'm going to put it off for a couple of minutes. Because this last weekend, despite being busy at anime conventions, I found time to finally watch a movie that is beloved by so many, to the point that I believe both Nick Scarpino and Tim Geddes have watched this movie. I finally watched Your Name, released in 2016, written and directed by Makoto Shinkai. And the reason I picked up Your Name, obviously it's a beloved movie, but he's also the director of Suzume. And we saw a trailer for Suzume before we went to go see the theatrical cut of some Demon Slayer episodes. And that really grabbed our attention, right?
Blew my socks off. I was excited about that one.
And so, Suzume, I remember watching and reviewing last year, totally fell in love with it. Was my first movie from this writer and director. And so, I did not come in to their work with Your Name like so many people have. And so I finally was like, I'm in the mood to kind of finally check out this movie that made this person kind of this big name that people pay attention to, right? Your Name, released in 2016. The kind of quick pitch here is Mitsuha Miyamitsu is a high school student in the rural town of Itomori, Japan. Bored of the town, she wishes to be a Tokyo boy in her next life. Soon, she begins to intermittently switch bodies with Taki Tachibana, a boy from Tokyo. On certain days, Taki and Mitsuha wake up in each other's bodies and must live the entire day as the other, reverting when they go to sleep at night.
Oh, some Freaky Friday stuff.
And let me tell you, Mike, this is a masterpiece. This is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Oh, yeah. This was fun. Yeah. This was all shapes of fun, goofy bits throughout that they, there will be a bit at the very beginning, very, very quick spoilers at the beginning, when the first kind of switch happens and Taki wakes up in Mitsuha's body. Of course, him being a teenage boy, the first thing he does is grab the boobies.
You got to.
And just totally in shock at what's happening. And the way they kind of keep calling back to that, even throughout the emotional journey that this story takes us on. This is such a beautiful story that I think really puts into perspective of understanding other people's lives and where it can take them, and really getting to quite literally live in another person's shoes and understand different walks of life, which I think was really beautifully done. It's also a little bit of a rom-com in some ways. And I think it finds this great balance of being very goofy in times and then really pulling the rug from under you and being no, this is what this story is really about. And having you fall in love with the main characters, the minor characters, to the point where they eventually have to truly figure things out in the second half of this movie. You're rooting for them, and you love them all, and you want them to...
Like they're drawn together? Like maybe they'll come together one day?
Maybe.
Damn.
I'm not going to say one way or the other what happens with that. I just encourage you, Mike, specifically to watch
I'll tell you what.
Because I imagine most of our audience has probably seen your name because it's been
right
8 years. But yeah, it's a beautiful movie. And I would say like the animation style, obviously very similar to Suzume, which really drew us in last year. I would say this popped even more because Suzume was very focused around... and I'm blanking on it, but it was a bit more spiritual. There were like more creatures and stuff like that. So like the use of like shadows and colors and like lighting, I think like obviously popped in that movie, but I think it pops even more here the way that they're able to use it, because it's not like, you know, they're fighting crazy monsters or anything. It is a bit more of like grounded in terms of like what the, you know, the characters are and like the landscapes and all that stuff, and the way that they're able to like in the art direction just like really make things beautiful was really stunning.
So no fighting monsters.
No fighting
monsters. More down to earth.
Yeah.
It's a down to earth story right here. I like that. I like that, Barrett.
You know, besides the, you know, switching in between
Freaky Friday,
the Freaky Friday,
like a beautiful, heartwarming story about seeing someone from the other perspective and seeing what their life is like. I like that.
Yeah. Very funny, very heartwarming, sweet movie that definitely had me tearing up. Definitely grabbed Alyssa's attention because she was ready to fall asleep, and then because it starts off a bit goofy, she started paying attention and then got her to tear up as well. So I just wanted to shout out Your Name very quickly, which again I know probably almost all of you have seen, but I just wanted to shout out that I finally watched it for y'all. Now it's time, Mikey. The hottest anime on the streets in the year of our Lord, 2024. Let's talk about Dandadan. So, last month, I got to see the first 3 episodes of Dandadan in theaters in like a kind of theatrical kind of cut.
Like what we did with Demon Slayer?
Yeah. It was like not necessarily like a movie, but a theatrical cut of the first 3 episodes that was subbed. I don't believe at the time the dubs had like caught up on recording those first 3 episodes. And so just to give you a rundown really quickly of Dandadan, obviously we'll talk about the first 2 episodes. I won't talk about episode 3. It's also been like a month and a half for me, so that episode I'm a little hazy on. But Dandadan is a new anime from animation studio Science Saru, starring Shion Wakayama / Abby Trott as Momo Ayase and Natsuki Hane / AJ Beckles as Ken Takakura. Momo Ayase is a high school girl who believes in ghosts but not aliens, while her classmate Ken Takakura, whom Momo nicknames Okarun, believes in aliens but not ghosts. In a bet to determine who is correct, the two decide to separately visit locations associated with both the occult and the supernatural, Momo visiting the former and Okarun visiting the latter. Mike, you've seen the first 2 episodes so far. I assume you watched dubbed. What do you think of Dandadan so far? And is it already anime of the year, despite only being 2 episodes in? How are you feeling right now, Mike?
Well, Barrett, I'll tell you what, it's got some energy. Yep. It's got some gas.
Yep.
Barrett, this could be a hot show.
Ooh.
This could be a red hot show. I was impressed through and through. You know me, I don't like getting too on the horny side in some of these shows.
Yeah.
It did take me there at one point, but we got past that. And we got to some really fun stuff that I really, really enjoyed. I loved the 2 characters being from 2 walks of life, the little nerdy guy and the hot, cool girl, right? And it's like, okay, they come together, and my favorite is like, you're going to go to the haunted house, and you're going to go over here to where we think aliens are at. You call me, let's see what happens. And, of course, just mayhem. And it was so much fun. Turbo Granny really stole the show, trying to eat on people's junk. I think it's like, there was a moment where it's like, you brought it up so well, and I want you to say, what was it like? It was
So to me, this show, and this is how I felt leaving the theater when I saw the first 3 episodes a month ago. It's got the energy of Fooly Cooley and the absurdity of Mob Psycho 100. And I think the impressive thing, and I'll kick it back to you in a second here, I think the impressive thing is that it doesn't feel like it's in the shadow of either of those things. It really feels like it stands on its own. And while I've been watching it, I'm never thinking, oh, this is just a lesser Mob Psycho. Oh, this is just a lesser Fooly Cooley. I think it's able to blend so many things in terms of horror, comedy, rom-com type of stuff, and just like typical kind of shonen type of action. Blends it all really well to make it its own thing that I think is utterly fantastic.
Yeah, like you said it so well to me when I looked at you, and you're like, it felt like Fooly Cooley. It's a modern Fooly Cooley to me, and that's what this was, right? We jumped on that. We tried it last time, and we had fun.
Yep.
I was like, oh, there's that vibe again, like this weird, wacky, kind of like alien monsters meet together, but we're still having fun.
Yeah.
And it's all about, we're coming of age, we're learning to love, and we're growing together. It's like, this is a good time, and some cool animations.
Oh, my
Man, there
gosh.
was some really dope artwork mixed with the fighting animations where it's like, oh, this is fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and in terms of like Fooly Cooley, like I really loved that was like one of the pieces of homework that we gave ourselves last year to watch that for the first time. And something that I thought was really striking was that, Fooly Cooley definitely is an absurd show, at least the original Fooly Cooley. There's been like 3 or 4 like revivals or follow-up series of Fooly Cooley. But that original run, I think captures like growing up and learning about yourself as like a sexual being in some way, shape, or form, and the absurd nature and the absurd emotions that you have going through that and in that coming of age. And I think Dandadan does something similar very well, and is able to kind of back up its commentary in very powerful ways, more so than I would say Fooly Cooley. Right, like there's. In the first episode, it was funny. You were talking about Dandadan on the stream with you and Blessing yesterday, where y'all were playing Dragon Ball and you're hyping up Dandadan. And I saw someone in our chat saying, there was some problematic stuff in that first episode, which I disagree with. I do think it's an uncomfortable situation that Momo is definitely put into when she's getting abducted by aliens. And then there's this very real situation where she's about to get sexually assaulted. But I think the kind of like actual commentary, it's not like the show is saying like, oh yes, this is good. But I think the powerful moment is her, taking the wisdom of a woman from her life and using that power to actually fight against that. Right. And I love that in that same scene, Okudun has like his big monologue about, believing in aliens, having no friends, and thinking if anybody would be friends with him, it would be aliens. And he gets his own like kind of hyped up monologue, and then he's like, Miss Ayase is like the only one who's like actually wanted to be my friend, and I'm not gonna let you hurt her. But then he's not like the like knight in shining armor who saves her, right? Like he immediately gets fucked up, pushed back into the wall, and it's Momo who actually puts this power into her own hands to stick up for herself, which I think was absolutely beautiful. And I think the way that you can I think the fact that they could pull something like that off in the middle of like all of this crazy music, flashy animation, all that stuff, I think that stuff is really, really impressive. And I think it's only going to get more absurd and crazy from here on out.
That's well said. And that's really cool that you saw that, right? Like that's what you took away from that. Because yeah, it is very flashy. It's quickly in your face where he jumps in and all of a sudden he's turning into Turbo Granny and we're flying all over the board. And yeah, that's really dope because yeah, she's so powerful and she learns that power. She gets that power and of course helps him out in a number of situations in episode 1 and 2. But yeah, for me, Barrett, that music stuck out too.
Ooh,
the Tros,
let's talk about the
Tros. Dude, we're starting to call it the Tros now.
The Tros. I like that. Give
the Tro was crazy.
Otonoke by Creepy Nuts. Dandadan. Like it is the bop of the not the summer, but I would say the fall time, right? We're in the fall season of anime
it's a bop.
pretty much. And it has taken over the internet, right? Like I'm seeing people who don't talk about anime ever see this intro, tweet about this intro, post about this intro. Like it has definitely captured people. And the outro as well is also really fun and cute.
Very good
I can't wait to meet that cat.
What's up with this cat?
I don't know.
What's up with this cat?
I love the cat dancing with the real cat because it's like a Lucky Charm cat.
I need to know what's up with this cat. This bodega cat. I'm gonna start calling him now.
Yes. But yeah, I really loved the first 2 episodes.
Turbo Granny just wants to munch on some nuts. Dude. That's crazy.
I'll let let you suckle my teats if you let me gobble your dog.
I wrote that down. I was like, this show's ridiculous.
Oh my God. Like, whoever the voice actor is for Turbo Granny, I think is incredible.
Yeah.
The aliens, I forget what the alien race was called, but I think they might have been all voiced by the same person, like each creature. And that performance was also like astounding, just like really impressive, like just the tiny little inflections that they could give each of the different aliens. Yeah, and then the second episode, right? We'll talk like very like vague spoilers here, but we see the kind of like team up finally of like Momo and Okarun like actually having to like figure out how to fight with like how to fight together and fight like another alien.
Yeah.
This big baseball sumo alien or whatever is going on here, right? I loved the use of color or lack of color thereof.
Yes, it was very interesting that we went into like black and white most of the time.
Yeah.
With a little bit of touches. And it was like, oh, this is wild.
It definitely felt like a film type of decision to make, and I love that was the choice that they made. So when they kind of figure out giving Okarun his version of the Turbo Granny like kind of style and all that stuff, the way the reds and the whites pop and stuff, especially when he starts to get into his fighting, like very good. And also like you've already said, like the music when that kicks in, when fights start, like
real good.
You get hyped.
When he gets in the moody mood, I'm like, oh, that's so good.
Yo, I just don't want to be alive, yo. Like, AJ is so good. Like,
so good.
Like, AJ nailed in that first episode of, like, the nerdy, kind of shonen protagonist, a little high-pitched, like, a kind of whiny, but, like, endearing, right?
Yeah.
And then to be able to switch into, like, yo, I'm kind of, like, moody and shit. Like, the way he can pop back and forth. And, full disclosure, I have started reading ahead on Dandadan.
Oh.
There might be some other characters that I'm excited to hear those performances because there might be some similar vibes of, like, kind of swapping back and forth between some different moods.
She's going to be all tied up then. Because she's in love with the moody mood.
Yeah,
when that moody mood kicks on, bro.
And, like, here's the thing is, like, you know, it was one of those, when I was watching it in theaters, I went on my own, couldn't convince Alyssa to come see it. I think you might have been busy, or it was like, it was a tough sell because it was subbed. And so I went on my own, and once, like, I could tell, like, the first episode was ending, where we get the name reveal of I'm Ken Takakura, and the spaceship blows up behind Ayase, and she has this moment of, like, oh man, I've been looking for my Ken Takakura, which, for those who don't know, was like a famous actor in Japan for decades and decades and decades. So she has like this huge crush on, you know, a young Ken Takakura, and she's been looking for hers. And the fact that it's his name, I could not help but grin from ear to ear. And I was like, I don't know if Alyssa's going to stay onto the show, but for this moment, I need her to watch this.
You gotta see this.
And so she tried it out. She's definitely in for now. She's gonna. We'll see in a couple weeks if she stays on. But yeah, such a special show.
Yeah, that's my biggest compliment. Is I wrote on my final notes. It's like I would keep watching more of this, right? And like you have shown me, and the audience has shown me a number of animes, and I've enjoyed watching them. Very, very few you'll find where you're like, oh, I'll watch more of that. Like, give me more of that right now. So,
100%.
Dandadan, you're on my list. You're on the list now.
You're on the list, Dandadan.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know how many episodes this season will be. I feel like a lot of like first seasons for anime are usually on the shorter side. They'll do like
eight to 12.
Yeah, 8 to 12 I could see. So yeah, we'll have a good few months of Dandadan at least, and so that's going to be a tough one when that goes away. Similar to Chainsaw Man, similar to Spy Family, similar to Skate the Infinity. Where are you, season 2?
When those go away, it's tough. It's right
tough.
there.
It's so tough.
I forget about how good we're living right now, especially as the new anime fan, where I have hundreds of episodes, but it is wild to be in like the thick of it where it's like, oh no, that's the season.
Yeah,
we'll see in a while, and you're like, oh no, damn.
What do we do in our downtime? I'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get to that, something new that's out that both you and I have seen in the last few days is My Hero Academia. You're Next, the new My Hero movie, the 4th My Hero movie to come out. Just came out in America this last weekend, 2 weekends ago. By the time that you're watching this, released this last weekend. The quick premise here: Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki, and the rest of UA High Class 1A must face off against Dark Might and the obscure crime organization under his control, the Golini family. So we're going to do a spoiler-free review here.
Okay.
We're not going to get into spoilers for this movie, just because, maybe the movie wasn't able to get to some of our viewers out there, depending on where they live. It's just it just came out, all that stuff. So I don't want to like fully like spoil and get into all of that.
As a jabroni, you can school me. I love the idea that they're getting these theatrical releases.
Yes.
I love that I can go there, have a great time, be around other community members that like anime. I think that's really rad. Is there a point where we ever get to a moment where it's like, I don't know, an Amazon, not Amazon Prime, but like, hey, this movie's out, you give us $20, you can just watch it here? Because, like you said, some people might not be able to see this. Is there going to be ever a situation like that?
So the 3 My Hero movies that have come out before this are definitely on streaming. They're not on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
But like they're available. I own them on some streaming service, not Amazon, but like what is it, like Vudu or whatever. So they eventually come. I think it depends on studio to studio, like how quickly that happens.
Okay.
I feel like for most anime movies, it's usually like 6 to 8 months after theatrical release. So, and that was like kind of a primary reason why I kind of wanted to keep this spoiler free. But some anime movies like eventually end up on Crunchyroll, like Jujutsu Kaisen 0 made it over to Crunchyroll. Your Name, Suzume, stuff like that. So I think it kind of depends on studio to studio contracts and all that stuff that we might not be so privy to. So, Mike, you saw My Hero Academia, You're Next, last night. Give me your spoiler-free review. How did you feel about this movie?
This is my favorite My Hero movie out of the bunch.
Whoa!
Yeah. That's how much fun I had. Maybe because I'm riding such a high of the second half of the season that we're currently wrapping up. But, like, for real, Barrett, they all got their powers. We're all kind of a team. We've grown a lot.
Yeah.
I think when you look back on the 3 other movies that we've had, it's been like, oh, we're growing, we're still young, we're learning, we're taking a summer vacation, right? But, like, this one was very much of like, oh, no, the kids from Class 1A, they got it, right? And, like, we're going to get other people, too. We're going to get others. It's like the world is already established, and that's what I liked.
Yeah.
I also loved the villain. It was like, oh, snap. Dark Might? That's what you want to do, bro? Yeah. And, like, I wish there was a little more love to some of the side villains. I felt like they kind of came and went pretty quick. But, like, I did like this, like, mobster family from the U.S. and like he's coming over and like he's got
not
this
the U.S.
squad.
I'm pretty sure like it's implied Italy that they're from.
Is that what he said? Okay, I thought he said U.S. yeah. But like I liked the whole setup.
Okay,
I liked all of this, and you know what? Finally, the music mix was correct because like it was more powerful. But it was a little slowed down.
I think that's less on the movies and more so the theaters that we go to.
Yeah, they finally got it. This time,
okay.
Right? But like it was Barrett. This is a good movie.
Wow.
This is a good time. This is a good time.
I had a good time with this movie. Now, granted, I saw this the first night working at Anime Impulse with Matt. So, I was at Anime Impulse from like 10 to like 6 roughly, and then drove back up to the city to pick up Alyssa, and then drove back over to one of the theaters. And so we had a 7:30 showtime. And so I was definitely going a little bit drowsy a little bit towards the end. And I think that it was less on the movie, for sure. And that was more so just like I had a long fucking day. I had a fun time. I don't think there hasn't been a My Hero movie yet that I haven't had a fun time with, at least, right? I would say, yes, I loved Dark Might purely from the performance perspective. I won't go into details on like Dark Might's origins, all that stuff. But it's obviously also voiced by Christopher Sabat, who voices All Might.
Of course.
And so it was fun to hear his performance as All Might, but as a villain, right? And so like from the performance perspective, I was like, oh, this is a fun time. I can tell he's having a fun time with this, especially with like some of the direction that they went with Dark Might. It was like, okay, they're having fun, they're getting goofy. It's definitely a fun ride. For me, My Hero movies are best when it's focused on the kids in their entirety and them working together, because I think it lends more time to actually sit and kind of hang out with Class 1A. And so I think this was, at least this is for my personal taste, right? Like the movie that came out a few years ago, World Heroes Mission, I was a little bit let down by because it was less of a focus on Class 1A, and it was more focused on Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki, and more so Deku and the original character, Rhodey, voiced by a friend of the show, Ryan Colt Levy. And I did like Rhodey really a lot as a character, but I think I just had kind of the wrong expectations for that movie, right?
Is that when they went to like the floating island, right?
Floating island.
Or the giant ship. Which one? Where did they go on that one, or did they stay around on ground? One of them they went to like a floating island, right?
The first movie was like the island in the middle of like the ocean and
that
stuff.
That might have been it. Okay.
The World Heroes Mission, I forget what the plot was like specifically for like the villain and stuff. I do feel like there was some kind of floating thing, but anyways, I felt like this movie brought it back, brought more of Class 1A into the fold, getting to have more moments with, like, you know, the opening of this. Like, this movie seemingly takes place at, like, kind of the beginning of this current season 7, before the big war really starts to break out. And I liked that we got a bit more of a showcase of Class 1A, getting to have smaller moments and whatnot with them. And so I had a fun time with it. Similarly to you, I wish there were some cool villain like abilities in certain fights that I wish we had gotten a bit more of.
Yeah.
But I will say, like the last act where you're starting to get all of these big fights going on, the animation was just like goddamn chef's kiss. Some of like the best animation that you'll see. Like there's an episode of My Hero this season that we'll talk about. That's also at that tier of like, god damn, how do they do this? And so I had a fun time with that. And I also like the original characters because there's always original characters who are more on the good side. I wish we got them a little bit more fleshed out. I enjoyed their characters. I wish we got to. I don't know. I by the end of it, I was like, man, I wish we got more out of this relationship here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a good time.
There's some hype moments in this.
Yes.
Like I'm thinking back, Barrett, I know we're going no spoilers, but like this was hype. There was some hype moments at the end here where it's like, oh yeah. And I think that just goes to like you said, right? It's like, where are we in the story? Okay, we're in this part. They're going to build it around this. And like, we have such a big world now. We have so many tied in characters that it's like, oh, everyone's getting a moment, and we're getting some dope moments, which I appreciate. Did feel a little fast. I know they're not supposed to be like long movies, but like this one in particular felt like we kind of hit the halfway point, and then we just went foot on the pedal. We got to get out of here.
This one
I thought we could have sat in a little bit longer.
This one clocked in at an hour and 50 minutes, and I'm looking back.
Oh,
at the
that's
other
pretty long, but yeah, it felt
short. And honestly, let me look at this last movie here. This was the longest My Hero movie so far.
Damn, and it felt short to me. It felt like I was like, oh, we could fit in another 20-minute episode in here, slide in, and it would have been like that. Really padded it out.
Okay, yeah. Mikey,
it's a good movie. Go
because you love this movie so much. You wanted to rank the original My Hero movies. What's your ranking?
Do you want to rank them, Barrett?
Yeah.
I mean, this one's a tough one, Barrett, because when I look back on some of them, it's tough. I mean.
So we got, for those at home, we've got My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, which was the one where they go to where All Might brings Deku to the cool science fair island in the ocean.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
My Hero Academia Heroes Rising, that's the one where Class 1A gets to run their own small agency on an island, and they've got the two little kids there. My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission, that is the one with Rhodey, voiced by a friend of the show, Ryan Colt Levy, and then obviously this new one, My Hero Academia, you're next.
Oh, I got it. I already got the list.
You got it?
I got the list.
Hit me with it.
All right, so number 2, a.k.a. Heroes Rising. That's at the bottom. Number 4.
Wow.
Number 4 to me.
Okay.
Didn't love that one. Number 3, My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, the first movie.
Yeah.
I liked that. I loved the animation at the end with the Deku fight. That one gets
running
to go
with
up.
All Might.
Remember they had to run all the way up the stairs, remember, too? That's in there. I think that became like a My Hero challenge where people were doing like fitness challenges where they tried to run up that in like a certain amount of time because that's what the kids did. Number 2 is My Hero Academia World Hero Mission.
Okay.
And then number 1 for me is this newest one. It was hype. It brought the fights. It had everything I wanted.
Mikey.
That's my ranking.
Would it blow your mind that my ranking is the exact opposite of yours? So my number 4 would be this recent one, My Hero Academia, and you're next. Wow. I thought it was a very fun ride.
Okay.
I did enjoy it. Maybe once I see it a second time when I'm not a sleepy eepy boy, maybe I'll enjoy it a bit more. Fun villain. And I do agree with you. I could have done with another 10, 15 minutes to kind of flesh out some things and some ideas. But again, my thing is using these movies as kind of like not a beach episode, not like a filler, like, oh, it's just, the gang hanging out. But I love these movies as an opportunity to hang out with Class 1A more. That isn't just Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto, right?
Okay.
Next up, at number 3 would be World's Heroes Mission, where there was less of that, but Rhodey is the heart and soul of that movie.
Yeah.
And I think that heart and soul is very pure.
They
and
got
very
a great
beautiful.
little dynamic too.
Yes,
him and Deku.
100%. Rhodey is such a unique character in the My Hero universe. So I do really like that movie. Number 2 would be My Hero Academia 2 Heroes. I loved the kind of like, let's go on a summer trip, summer vacation. Let's go to the science festival. The original character in that movie, who is like the daughter of one of my All Might's friends, who's like into like a tech building and all that stuff, I thought was really adorable. Them getting like all dressed up to go to this little ball, and so like you've got like Deku and Bakugo in like full like tuxedo type of things, fighting and battling. That was always fun. And then Heroes Rising, I adore, which is the kids being able to run their own little agency. It's not the biggest, craziest one, but I think that is the one, to me, of like what I look for in these movies that really showcases that, of like everybody really getting their moment to shine, not just a small like 10-second like, oh, here's Sero like wrapping someone up, or here's Mirio coming in. It is like everybody has a moment in that movie, and I adore it so much. So
man, shout out, those are 4 good movies to add to the universe. From this being like my first anime and like loving every moment of it, being blessed to have 4 movies that like I enjoy through and through. It's like, how awesome is that? This is cool.
Do you know how many more you're getting, Mike?
More movies?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope 1,000.
Right now, at least, if I'm remembering this correctly, leave in the comments below if I'm not. I believe there's 6 more movies contracted for My Hero Academia.
Oh,
and it'll be interesting.
Do we know what those are? Or can like
no,
be anything?
I think it was like
cool.
a few years ago where it was like, oh, they're contracted to do like 10 movies in total or something. So I don't think we know what those movies are. It'll be interesting, especially with slight spoilers. My Hero Academia is ending next year with its final season. Do some of those movies take place after the main story of My Hero Academia?
That's what I want.
These movies have done kind of smart, like finding somewhere in the middle of these stories. So like, oh, here's an area where like we don't know what they were up to for like a month or so. Like, let's put it in this part of the timeline or whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. So yeah,
this one has a post-credit scene.
I did not watch it.
Okay, yeah.
I did not figure
little post-credit scene. Post-credit scene definitely fits like the timing of where it's supposed to be. That's what it really is. It's just like it's clearly like a, oh, let me bring you back to the actual show and where this is supposed to be to get you excited or like understand where it is. So that was kind of cool.
All right. Well, before we like I know we're itching just to start talking about My Hero Academia season 7.
Yeah.
But before we do that, Mike, I need to know where the One Piece is, and I need to know the Lale Lule lore of Dragon Ball. But before you do that, I will let you know I watched 3 episodes of One Piece last night. I am still an Alabasta. Who is it? And it's been years, maybe decades at this point.
Yes.
So very, very light spoilers. The blonde-haired dude with the glasses, I think his name is like Kuzo or something, who's like friends with Princess Vivi. They were like childhood friends and stuff like that. He's the leader of the leader of like the rebellion.
Leader of the freedom fighters. Yeah.
He got them to raise the white flags, and then someone who is secretly a part of Baroque works shoots him from the back.
That shit was crazy.
It was devastating. I was shocked. I was in awe. And so where I left off, obviously, I think the last update I gave for One Piece was obviously Luffy was killed by Crocodile.
That's crazy.
We knew that Luffy was not actually dead. Luffy has come back as Water Luffy. He's got a water tank, and he's using water to fight Crocodile because he's put it together. My guess was fire, because like fire and sand make glass. And just easily like punch him or something like that. And so I did not expect Luffy to come in with water, and the exact opposite to take on Crocodile. So I'm in the middle of that fight right now. Haven't watched a lot. It's not a big update for Where's the One Piece, but that's.
But how badass is that scene when he sticks the hook through Luffy?
Oh,
So cool.
Crazy.
Gotta love Crocodile.
Crazy.
That, man, Barrett, that's a good one. And that's a tough moment when they raise the white flag, but then there's a person on the inside because they know the plan.
Yep.
That was good. Barrett,
Where's
my
the One
update
Piece?
for the One Piece is a very interesting one because I am in the thick of it in Marineford, and I have not watched One Piece. I'm in a weird spot right now with my anime.
Marineford, just to recap, I think you talked about that last episode.
Yes.
They're going down to prison. Other groups
No,
going
that's
up.
Water 7, so we're out now. So, yes, if the last time you didn't catch up, I don't know where we last talked, but I'll set it up like this. We just got out of Water 7.
Okay.
And I think the true One Piece fans will know, but Water 7 was the world's most impenetrable prison on Earth. They were holding Ace.
Gotcha.
Everybody was spread out after the archipelago arc, which was incredible. Luffy teams up with, of course, Amazon Lily and the lovely Boa Hancock, who is a warlord. She falls in love with Luffy for being so kind and amazing because he does something over at Amazon Lily
by the
that
time
was
I
very
get to
amazing. And so those two sneak on a Marine ship, go to Water 7 because she's going to help him find Ace before he's publicly executed. So they have him at Water 7. Then they get him. They take him out to Marineford, which is the military base, the big naval base, where they're going to publicly execute Ace. And so now we've gotten out of the prison and we headed to Marineford, which was really, really fun. Awesome stuff there. Great world building on understanding the world and how the Marines can kind of use this whirlpool to this advantage to be able to go around the world way faster.
Oh, yeah,
Very cool.
yeah,
There's a giant
okay.
whirlpool with 3 big gates. But then we get to Marineford and we set up the stakes of Luffy's got to save Ace before he's publicly executed. We have all the pirates here. We have warlords who are teamed up with the Marines because the rule is if you want to continue to be a warlord, you got to work with us. And if you betray us here, of course, one of the warlords, Miss Boa Hancock, you're out. You can't be doing that. So we have this really cool standoff of we've now met Don Flamingo, which is very cool. We've also seen Greco Moria, who is back again. It's cool to see the warlords, and Mihawk is in there. Mihawk's there, and it's this standoff because, of course, Ace works for the Whitebeard Pirates, and I'll tell you what, Gramps, he's there to save the kid. You know what I mean? Him and his crew, they're not going to let this fly. And so it's we're back and forth. We still have no idea. I mean, we know what's happening with the Straw Hats, but at this moment, there's nobody. It's just Luffy and all these people. It's a whole lot of fun, but I've hit the pause button. I haven't been watching as much as I should, but we've had a lot of fun with Dandadan now. I'm going to talk about Dragon Ball in a second. I definitely am ready to watch more. And we also have the news, Barrett. I don't know if you saw it. I'm sure you did. One Piece is going to go on a 6-month hiatus.
Yes, I did see that.
So One Piece, the anime, will go on a 6-month hiatus. They're going to remaster the Fishman arc, which is essentially after what I'm about to watch here in Marineford. So I haven't seen that. But the word is they might tighten it up a little bit. They're pretty much just going to rerun that while you wait.
Okay,
and so a perfect one for all of you out there, just so you know, the math, which I saw a fun TikTok on. If there's 1,200 episodes and there's 6 months off, you could watch 6 episodes a night, which is 2 hours, and you would be caught up fully with One Piece by the time it returns.
It's crazy the amount of people I met this weekend, kids in particular, who, because Matt voices someone from One Piece, they're like, oh yeah, I've read through One Piece twice.
Amazing.
Twice.
Amazing.
Twice.
I'm buying all the books. I'm going to get those
You're crazy.
books.
You're
and
crazy.
So, audience out there, I apologize. I have not caught up on that. It's a very interesting moment, Barrett, of clearly something big is happening. We also learned that the world government has been doing something very odd with a person named Kumo. And Kumo is a maybe former warlord, but Kumo's being used in a certain way where it's oh shit, the Marines and the world government are up to no good.
They're up to something.
And Kumo, super cool. He's got this panda paw as his logo, and he's the one who made all of the One Piece pirates go in different directions at the archipelago. He put them in Barrett, you got to get to this moment with Zoro and Kumo. What a beautifully stunning, heartbreaking moment, bro. And he's there for the team and he takes all the pain. But Kumo can do these cute little panda paw, bubbles that come at you and do a bunch of damage. But he put all the One Piece pirates in different panda paws and they flew away. That's how they all got separated.
Oh, shit.
But now Kumo's back, and Eva knows Kumo, but maybe it's not Kumo. There's a lot of awesome people now involved too. So you're seeing a lot of the Marine like bosses there who do really cool stuff. You're getting to learn certain backstories. Like Garp is there. You know, you might have seen Garp. Garp is pretty cool. I don't know if you met Garp or not yet. He's Grandpa Luffy.
What?
That's pretty great. Yeah. Garp is there. Everybody loves Garp.
Garp.
Yeah, Garp is great. We love Garp. Garp is there. Another guy with the seagull hat's there. He's the big boss. He's doing things. And I could go on for hours. It's just much fun.
Now, there's something took over the Kind of Funny office like wildfire, Mikey.
Whoa.
And that was a video game called Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Crazy.
Which got Blessing to get back into his Dragon Ball era. Got Tim to start it up. Got Andy to start it up. Got you to start it up. And then encouraged you to start up Dragon Ball Z, but then you were adamant about going back to the original Dragon Ball. But then you're also kind of learning about this Dragon Ball Z story anyway through Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So give me the Lale Lule lore of Dragon Ball so far in the eyes of Snowbike Mike Howard.
Yeah, it's a lot of excitement, of course. If you are currently playing Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, you know that it is a fast forward through the story and arcs that you would know from Dragon Ball Z and the
like
universe.
A highlight clip.
Yeah, and like you get to do certain cool fights, and they have like moments where they have like the little fun vignettes and the comic book art, but then there are also like some videos. So like you're learning about it at such a fast clip, right? Like I know now about Goku. I know why Goku was on planet Earth, right? He was put there similar to Superman. Well, I guess not technically Superman. Think more Invincible.
Invincible.
Where it's like,
heard.
He was put there to then dominate these people, possibly kill everybody on Earth, but he doesn't know that, right? And so Goku's this freaking strong dude, but then his brother Raditz shows up, and Raditz is like, yo, Goku, what have you been doing this whole time? And clearly he's like, I have no idea. I'm just a good-hearted jabroni, you know what I mean? And so these two collide, and then we meet Vegeta. He's Super Saiyan, and he's like, yo, like, you think you're stronger than me? And Goku's like, well, clearly I am. He beats that guy. So it's like, I'm learning things way too fast, and people are a little uptight about that, but I'm having a blast. Shout out to this video game. I wish there was more like that for animes that I love, like One Piece and stuff like that, where it's like, you can play through some of your favorite arcs. And now, mind you, One Piece Warriors is like that. It's Dynasty Warriors, but One Piece.
Yeah.
So you can play through all the cool arcs. Dragon Ball, great job. So that got me excited to watch it now, Barrett.
Okay.
And of course, we have a Kind of Funny best friends, Kebabs, who love Dragon Ball. They are the keeper of the Dragon Balls. And so Kebabs was like, Mike, I've told you 1,000 times.
Yeah, her YouTube picture is like
little baby Gohan or Goku. One of the two.
Yeah.
And they were like, Mike, don't fuck this up. Okay.
Don't fuck it up.
You have to watch the original Dragon Ball into Z and onwards.
No.
And so I watched episode 1 of Dragon Ball Z with my boy Kevin A. Sex after a soccer game, and I loved it. Right? You got Goku. He's in his mid-20s. He's got a kid named Gohan. He's hanging around. I love the art style. It feels old and looks old. You got Raditz who shows up. They end every episode with like, and now Raditz takes to the skies, and he's looking for Goku. But will Goku know what's above him? Find out next on
Dragon Ball
Z. And it's so
Z.
good. And you're like, oh, shit. This rocks. And so then Kebabs was like, Mike, don't fuck this up. You're fucking it up. And I was like, all right, Kebabs, I won't do that. I'm going to go now watch Dragon Ball, which is the original OG. And so I went back to Dragon Ball. I am now 10 episodes into Dragon Ball, and it is a cute, fun, it feels more like a slice of life because we haven't got fully into like super fighting yet. Yeah. It's very much like baby Goku is hanging out with Bulma, and Bulma now she knows about the Dragon Balls because Goku's got one of the Dragon Balls, which he thinks is like his grandfather, or his grandfather left it for him. But then Bulma's like, oh, it turns out this little kid can fight, so I'm going to use him, and he's going to be my partner in crime. But really, I want the 7 Dragon Balls to make my own wish. All she wants is a boyfriend. This beautiful girl, she just wants a boyfriend. She's like any other teenager, just like, I just want love.
Bulma.
You know what I mean? Yeah, Bulma. It's like, okay.
She'll get one eventually.
And then like, of course, now we have like naked Goku, a lot of naked Bulma. We got this one guy, super funny. Who is this guy? I don't know. This third wheel guy is like following him around. Okay, he's pretty funny. He's got a cute cat. I like the villain. You know what? I'm in on Dragon Ball right
Really?
now.
Okay.
I'm fully in on Dragon Ball.
Okay, I like that. Now, here's the thing is that like I picked up Dragon Ball Sparking Zero for a night.
Okay.
And I was like, let me check this out. Let's see what the jabronis are feeling, right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I'm not good at that video game. Not at all whatsoever.
Okay.
And so I stopped it. But with y'all talking about it so much, and Bless and Andy kind of giving their pitches of what the story is about and all this stuff, I am interested. I did watch the original Dragon Ball a few times as a kid, and I did like the vibes. Again, a bit more cozier, slice of life type of stuff. But I'm interested in Dragon Ball Z, and so now I'm wondering, do I start up Dragon Ball Z Kai, which is the remastered, more condensed version of Dragon Ball Z. So you're getting less of the power.
Do you want me to go straight to the source? Because I'll tell you right now what the correct source is.
The power-up episodes where there's a lot of filler and stuff like that. There's less of that from my understanding from Kai. So I don't know what the vibes are. Because here's the thing is, let's see, Dragon Ball Z has nearly 300 episodes. Dragon Ball Kai has 167.
That's not bad. If you watch 6 episodes a night, which is 2 episodes a night,
I might be a little catch up by the time One Piece
you can tear
returns.
through that. You can tear through that. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh shit! I feel like I got to stay dedicated to One Piece though, because that is my forever anime. Like as I've said, when I've barely had any updates on One Piece, that is the anime that I watch when there's nothing really else going on in the anime world, when I'm in the mood to watch some anime. And it just so happens, like, you know, Dandadan's week to week now. My Hero just ended. So there's a little bit, little less that I'm watching throughout the week. So I might be getting back into One Piece, but maybe eventually after I get done with Alabasta, because I still have like 10, 15 episodes left of that. Maybe once I kind of wrap up that arc, maybe I try a little bit of Dragon Ball Z Kai.
Well, here's what Kebab says, just so you know. Kebab says, for me in the English watch order would be the OGDB into Z Kai into Super. If you're doing it in Japanese, swap out Z Kai for the original Z.
Interesting. I wonder why that is.
Something to think about. Just something to think about right there. What is after Alabasta? Let me hype you up on what you could be. Art?
Yeah.
Oh, you go to Skypiea. Oh, you take to the skies, bro. That shit's crazy, man.
Okay, so once I'm done with Alabasta, do I start up Dragon Ball Z Kai, or do I continue with One Piece and go to Skypiea?
Well, I mean, I'm the worst to answer that because I'm going to tell you, you got to watch more One Piece. You know what I mean? You got to sell your soul. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you watch 6 episodes a night, you could be there in 6 months.
Oh, man. I love talking about anime with you, Mikey. And I love talking about anime with all of you. We're going to talk about some more anime, specifically the second half of My Hero Academia Season 7. We're going to give our spoiler-free thoughts at first, and then we're going to go into all of the crazy spoilers in the final 10 episodes of My Hero Academia Season 7, right after a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Phasmophobia. The genre-defining horror game is finally coming to consoles on October 29th, 2024.
What did you see? Okay, never mind, we're coming. Hello?
That's right, just in time for Halloween, the phenomenon that is Phasmophobia enters console early access on PS5, PSVR 2, and Xbox Series X/S with full cross-play supported across the platforms. Join the already almost 20 million players on Steam, including our very own Snowbike Mike, and get ready for some spine-chilling ghost hunting with up to 3 friends. Making sure you work as a team and utilize your equipment is key to making it out alive. It's almost time, Ghost Hunters. Phasmophobia is finally entering early access on PS5, PSVR 2, and Xbox Series X/S on October 29th. Wishlist now and prepare for the terrifying ghost hunts that await.
This episode is brought to you by New World Eternum. New World Eternum is a thrilling action RPG experience for console and PC players with a vibrant world, vast and beautiful setting, dynamic real-time action combat, and the freedom for players to choose how to forge their destiny. Combat is skill-based and dynamic, incorporating swords, guns, and sorcery so that you can build one character to rule them all as you explore Eternum and unravel the mysteries of the supernatural island that you can't leave. You love playing RPGs alone? You can in New World Eternum, or play cooperatively with your friends as you complete quests, get better gear, and level up. Greg played this at Summer Game Fest on PlayStation 5 and was caught off guard by how much he enjoyed it and how many hours he said he could see himself sinking into the final product. There's boss fights, cool enemies, crossplay, resource gathering, and crafting. So yeah, this sounds like a Greg game. New World Eternum is available now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. This episode is brought to you by Marvel Snap. Y'all know Marvel Snap completely took over my life when it burst on the scene 2 years ago. I love it so much that I even mentioned it in my wedding vows, because to this day, my wife Gia is so obsessed that she has not missed a single day of completing her daily challenges. Marvel Snap is an award-winning collectible card game that combines deep strategy, a unique snapping mechanic, and your favorite Marvel characters with thousands of unique card art variants created by renowned artists to collect and use. Each game only takes about 3 minutes, so you can get in and out wherever you are. And with more than 270 cards in Marvel Snap with over 2,000 unique art variants, you'll always find some new fun. Marvel Snap just celebrated their 2nd anniversary, and to say thank you, they're throwing a party. Boosters, credits, variants, borders, and more are all up for grabs just by logging in daily, starting on their anniversary, October 18th. Download the Marvel Snap app now, available on the App Store, Google Play, and Steam, or visit marvelsnap.com to learn more. This episode is brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium, polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers an unrivaled product that's just as good as any expensive pair that we've worn. Y'all know I've been outside in the sun a lot playing Pokemon Go, and it's such a great experience wearing Shady Rays when I am out and about looking dope. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. Exclusively for y'all, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal. Head to shadyrays.com and use code KINDAFUNNY for 50% off 2 or more pairs of shades. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Again, shadyrays.com, use code KINDAFUNNY for 50% off 2 or more pairs of shades.
Welcome back, everybody. It is the second half of Kinda Anime, episode 6. I thought this was going to be a short episode, but we're an hour in, and we're finally getting to...
That's the power of anime.
It's the power of anime.
Friendship.
Yes, 100%.
Brings us together.
Brings us
and
together.
we have fun.
It is finally time to talk about My Hero Academia Season 7, Part 2. So how this is going to work, we're going to talk about our spoiler-free thoughts and review
Spoiler-free,
so far.
people.
And then we'll be very clear once we get into spoilers and all of that good stuff. Just in case you haven't, maybe you wait for an entire season to be out, all that good stuff. Maybe you're not caught up on the last few episodes. Yeah. We'll be very clear once we get into spoilers.
And teasing what's after the spoiler section.
Not after the spoiler section. It's gonna kick off the spoiler section. To kick off the spoiler section, once we get into spoilers, we will have an interview with the voice actors behind the English voice actors for Endeavor, Dabi, and Shoto. And the reason it's gonna
that's
kick
a crazy
off,
lineup.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about the Todoroki family saga with the 3 of them. Yeah. That story is a very personal one for myself, and so I'm very excited and nervous to talk with them about it. And the reason that's going to kick off the spoiler kind of section is because the English dub isn't caught up, and by the time you're watching this, the finale for the English dub will be this coming weekend, and the spoiler stuff that we're going to talk about and break down and do a spoiler cast of, essentially, is going to talk about some of the stuff that the dub has not caught up to yet. Yes. So we're going to do a little bit of finagling there, just in case you're an English dub watcher and you don't want us to fully get into things, but maybe you want to hear the interview. So anyways, spoiler-free review. Mikey, how do you feel about the second half of My Hero Academia Season 7?
Yeah, Barrett, let's talk about it. Let's be real with each other. I told you the last season that we had.
Yeah.
I was like, this is peak. Yeah. This can't go.
And you were kind of disappointed in how it ended. You're like, it should have ended here.
I was like, you can't go beyond this. And you're like, Mike, I think, I know that they're going to go beyond this. Give it some time. And I was like, Barrett, they built me up, and it was so good that, you could have ended it all right there, and I was going to be happy. Mm-hmm. And you're like, Mike, let's just strap in for the ride. Let's see where they take us. Let them cook. And at first, I wasn't happy because, of course, we have a little bit of a building saga there.
We had Dark Deku.
Yeah, Deku had to go do his thing, and I get it. You know what I mean?
Bakugo had to apologize to him.
Things had to happen. And so when we started off this season, I was like, can you really top what we had experienced in that season? Mm-hmm. You took me to the top. And I'm very happy to say that they did it. They did land it. There's some like apprehension in my voice you're hearing because I don't know if it's as good, but it's good.
Yeah.
Like it's very good. Don't get me wrong. Like it's great. This was fun, but I don't know if it had me like at the point where I'm in tears and I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay.
There was something lacking here where I didn't cry after every other episode. And that was what was happening to me previously, where it's like
Interesting.
they hit me in the feels. There was these overwhelmingly like build up moments of like, we're powering through. We're overcoming this obstacle. I'm in it. Now this one is like, okay, but they get me. They get like some really cool moments and there's some great team ups. So I'm going to give this like a good to great.
Okay.
Like this is very good. This is great.
Uh-huh.
But it was, I don't know if it was as good as the last one.
Okay, all right. Well, my spoiler-free review of the second half, the last 10 episodes of season 7, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. This was an amazing
9 out of 10, I like
half
that.
of the season. And that's surprising to hear that there wasn't anything that was getting you tearful, because I can name you, out of the 10 episodes that we've watched since the last episode, 4 episodes that had me at least tearing up, 1 episode that had me bawling my eyes out.
Nice.
And I think that's really impressive as someone who caught up with the manga, read the manga up until when it finished a couple of months ago, knew where the story was going, and when I took that story in, when the manga was releasing, it didn't hit the way I wanted it to. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm liking the story anymore, all of this stuff. But then seeing it adapted into television, I think we talked about this last episode, this arc in particular feels more written for an episodic nature rather than 10 to 15 pages of a chapter, right? And so there are some things, a lot of things from this arc in particular that hit me way more despite knowing what was going to happen, seeing it actually put into an episodic format where some of the emotion like really comes through. There's a particular battle near the end of this season that I think was like expertly kind of condensed into 1 episode that I thought was going to be 2 and kind of split kind of halfway through this fight. And I think it made for a better storytelling decision to kind of condense it all into 1 because of some of the subject matter in this particular fight that I think they ended it in the middle of the fight. I think a lot of people would have been like, this is kind of weird. But then that fight finishes and it all kind of wraps up in a way that like you get people like Alyssa, who is like sobbing of like the kind of message behind what some of these characters are going through. And so I think the adaptation specifically for this arc, not just for the second half of season 7, but season 7 as a whole, which I was a little bit apprehensive going into, I think they have done such a fantastic job adapting this entire season, what they've had to adapt from the manga.
That's great. That's killer. That's good to hear.
The voice acting, I think, is stellar, right? Like, I've been watching week to week subbed, but then, like, the last, like, week and a half, I've been kind of rewatching as much of the dubbed as there is out right now. And, yeah, there's some performances that are so fun, so emotionally heartbreaking, and just the quality of animation, right? Like, you know, I love season 4 and 5. I know that might not be some people's favorite seasons, and definitely when it comes to the quality of animations, those were definitely like, I don't think, to me, when I'm in the moment watching something, I'm not like, oh man, like they cheaped out on this sequence because it's just a couple of frames or whatever. I'm just like, I'm just taking in the story. I'm just having a fun time. But I can't deny that some of the animations and some of the fights in seasons 2 and 3 are fucking insane. And they really have brought it in season 7 to have it, like, in terms of animation quality in some of these fights. I forget who the lead animator is for some of the crazier fight scenes, but when there's a fight scene and things start getting blocky in the action, you know that, like, they've got their top person on it. And there are a couple scenes in this season that are like, oh, they brought that dude back, and that dude is cooking. We're going to talk about some sequences that got me so goddamn hyped, especially with Todoroki.
Yeah.
Oh man, just give me chills thinking about. So yeah, I thought this was a overall fantastic season, and I am very excited and really hopeful, honestly, for the final season 8.
Yeah, I think my biggest positive is they set me up well for the final season. You and I both know, you know, when you finish this, you know the players at hand, you know the stakes, you know the questions that need to be answered, and it tees it up for like, all right, we are definitely in the end game now. There is no going back. This is it. And I'm very excited to see how you do that. You know what I mean? How do we really finish this? Because it's hot right now. It's wild on the battlefield.
So I don't want to talk too much about, season 8 and all that stuff in the spoiler-free section. So we'll do some conversations about season 8 and the future of My Hero going forward, kind of near the end of our spoiler-filled conversation here. And speaking of that, I feel like there's not much else to talk about unless we take the chains off and we're going full spoilers.
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna go full. We got to go into it. So this was a good second half of the season.
Yeah,
this was a good season.
Yep, and
this is it.
And I'm excited to get into the final season next year, which is crazy to think about, and we'll talk about that later. So to kick off the spoiler filled part of the My Hero Academia Season 7 talk, we're actually going to take it to an interview with myself and the English voice actors behind Endeavor, Shoto, and Dabi. Here it is. That's right, everybody. We are joined by some fantastic guests, and it is my honor to introduce some of the voices behind some of your favorite characters from My Hero Academia. First up, we have Enji Todoroki, aka Endeavor, aka Patrick Seitz. Patrick, how are you doing today?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here, of course. Next up, we have Toya Todoroki, aka Dabi, aka Jason Liebrecht. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, man. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for being here. And last but surely not least, we have Shoto Todoroki, aka Shoto, aka David Matranga. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. It's great to be here.
It's great to have all three of you here. Obviously, we just recently got the episode 157, aptly titled I Am Here in English Dub. It is, I believe, what many would consider to be the true climax of the Todoroki family saga, and a huge episode for all three of you in various aspects. The first thing I would love to know is what each of you were feeling going into the booth, and what was the journey like for this recording session for such a big episode for the Todorokis. David, I would love to start with you.
Oh, yeah. I think even since season 6, I have been the events that kind of started there, I've been so amped up and so ready for it. It's been something that people have been talking about for a while now, and the background of the story and the relationships and has been peppered throughout. That the buildup has been so amazing, and not only from a storytelling perspective, watching from an audience perspective of when is this going to happen, how is this going to go down, but as the actor as well, you're doing really the same thing. I'm so invested in the story that when this episode and some previous to this, I mean, it's the stakes are so high for me. I come in amped up. All of the history and the backstory is there, and then I get to be there and live it as it's coming to fruition. There's nothing better. I mean, I think I'll just finish with this. There was a time where I came in for the episode and I started so hot that the director had to say, okay, you know what? You started at like a 14. Let's bring it down a bit so we have somewhere to go. And I was like, oh, right. Okay. So I was just ready to be in the thick of it. So, I mean, it's so exciting. I have trouble finding another point in my acting career that has been quite like this relationship, and to do it with Jason and Patrick, it's amazing. So yeah, needless to say, amped up to the hilt.
So from what I'm understanding is that you're coming a little bit with your fire side, entering the recording booth, and a little less of the cool side. Your director has to kind of remind you got the cool side to you as well.
Definitely so. Remember the balance.
Yeah. Jason, I want to kick it over to you for this question of what the journey was like getting into the recording booth for this episode, because this is definitely obviously a big emotional episode for all three of you. But I was definitely taken by your performance with Dabi and everything that he's going through. What was that journey like for you?
Man, I mean, it's to reiterate some of what David said. It's a crazy thing when you've had a character. You've been part of a character. That character's been part of you for the better part of 10 years. And with the emotional depth and content that's come with the characters themselves and also the interactions between these characters, this family, and to have those characters being played by personal friends, people that you genuinely respect and have love for. And I mean, man, it's unlike anything, really. I never expected, and I wrote both of them right after I had my session. And I said something to the effect of never expecting to get this kind of artistic fulfillment as an actor in the realm of anime, and that I was proven wrong today. I struggled to get through that session, man. I mean, just to keep myself from crying and being able to get the words out, not to be, kind of serious in the kind of funny context, but that's absolutely the truth. I couldn't have a better duo to play off of. They broke my heart repeatedly. And I know that we had kind of like some of it was in there for me and some of it wasn't, and vice versa. And this happens all the time. But you feel really fortunate when you get a very poignant line from your brother or from your father or, the people playing them. And you actually hear them say it and you get to play off that. And it's when it has this kind of emotional stakes, like I said, it's incomparable in my journey in this particular realm.
Just to stick with that for a second, because obviously with anime, like voiceover dubbing and all that stuff, I feel like oftentimes, you're going into the recording studio on your own, not really having a scene actor or a scene partner there with you. Were you the final one to kind of record this episode of the three of you?
No, I think that Patrick might have finished it up, if I'm not mistaken. I think David was in first and then me and then Patrick. And a lot of this is just, the timing of the rest of our schedules. And
Right. So I guess kind of what I'm getting to is like when you are going in and there are kind of scene partners that have already recorded the lines, do you have like the kind of opportunity to be able to hear those and kind of match some of that energy or play off
absolutely.
of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. I mean, you feel really fortunate when Patrick was halfway done. So we got to a really good spot. Honestly, the last line he had recorded when I went in was one that I needed. And so I just felt very lucky that it had worked out like that. And then my very, very intense stuff after that, he was in for, I was already in for when he recorded. So I know that's, right, man?
Having you in my ear when I came in for that latter half of the episode was such a gut punch, but such a gift, because that's what I needed.
On the flip side of that, being the first one, because I agree with what has been said, it's phenomenal when you've got that to support you. Being the first one, what's interesting about living, and this kind of echoes what Jason was saying, living with these characters for as long as we have, it's almost like they were there. Even though I wasn't able to hear them, I'm so invested in that moment and what's happening. As I was watching, and recording, watching Dabi, I was... It's like I'm imagining Jason, you know what I mean? And then I'm really excited. Like I cannot wait to see this put together. It's gonna be it's an interesting experience on both sides.
When
that's awesome, dude.
When you've worked with someone for as long as we've worked with each other, you definitely get an idea of what they might do, and yet you're still surprised all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, honestly, great perspectives from every which way. That's always such a fascinating thing to kind of hear and learn about, and hear y'all's process of being able to kind of bounce back and forth depending on who's in the studio first and all of that. But to bring it back to Patrick for this kind of opening question, what were you feeling going into the booth, and what was this journey like for you for this episode?
I was feeling excited and scared. I mean, you always want to do a good job, and you always try to do a good job, but there are moments in your career where you're like, I need to do a good job. I need to do a good job for a variety of reasons, including just my own soul as a human being and a performer. And this is definitely one of them. Like, I went into this episode, and it's weird because you are on the roller coaster, but you are also the roller coaster itself. Like, you have to feel all of these things and let it take you where it's going to go and be in the moment and have it be visceral. But you also are, performing lines based on baked in timing to the animation's flap. So it's a very visceral, honest, organic, emotional in the moment thing you're doing. But there's also that whole technical side that you can't just throw out the window. It's this weird mix of the two, and you have to honor both. To what Jason was saying, going in there, I'm thinking to myself, I know I'm going to cry. Like, there's gonna be no lack of crying, but you also have to make sure that you're crying in a way where you're still clear enough that they're not just like, okay, that was 20 seconds of you going, because that's what it could become. Like, if your emotions if the dam just breaks, suddenly the words and the clarity and the timing and the lip flap and the hitches, all that could go out, out the window. So it's this weird balancing act of really being honest about it, but then also making sure that, like, you're hitting your blocking, so to speak.
Right.
I was really looking forward to this episode, but also just scared as hell.
Yeah, understandably. And sorry if this is, a little bit too personal in the process. Like, what was kind of your go-to on trying to kind of recenter yourself in case you ever got to that point of bubbling into the microphone and getting a little too emotional? Do you have anything like that, or was it purely just I gotta make the marks kind of thing?
Just resetting and pulling back enough that you don't kill the emotion, you don't kill that momentum. I mean, so much of what we do, most of the time, we're walking and we're seeing, even if we've watched the episode itself or have broad strokes ideas, we are seeing the script for the first time in that moment. So, with as long as the three of us have been doing this, you get really good at committing to a thing but stopping, but pausing but going, but swinging, but then pivoting if you have to. So you don't want to tamp down the emotion to where you've stamped out the embers of it. But again, gets really emotional. You go, take a breath. Okay, I'm good. Let's do it again. I mean, it's again, that balancing act of the emotion and the technical, for me at least.
That's what makes y'all the pros. So let's get into the nitty gritty. And David, I kind of want to start with you for this episode, because Shoto and Ida, I feel like, have the first kind of big moment here, getting the speech from All Might, hyping them up and encouraging them to make it over to Endeavor and Dabi. This moment being big because these two young heroes are coming kind of full circle all the way back from the hero killer arc, even with Stain himself looking over both of them as they speed away. And, Stain has this little kind of line where he looks at Ida, he's like, that is a true hero finally. What was it like for you to see all of that come back together?
Oh man, there is so much emotion in this series. It's so well done. The way, like what you just described, the hearkening back to something, the foreshadowing. I mean, first you've got All Might, who is this symbol of what to strive to be. At the height of he was everything. And when you think about Shoto growing up, watching that, and also the complicated nature of comparing that to Endeavor and what that was experiencing then, and then, that Hosu City Stain Killer arc. I mean, that was one of the first moments that the students, I mean, that we came together and really supported each other in a real way. I mean, that fight couldn't have happened without everyone showing up for Ida, and so so coming full circle with that, with Ida being a support to that, and with All Might saying it's up to you guys, it's hard to even really describe. I mean, so it was emotional there. I mean, and where Shoto's coming from at the beginning of that episode, what he's just gone through, and where he is physically fatigued, all of that comes into it. He's being almost held by Ida, supported, and then they make a plan, and they're off to the races. I mean, it's a kind of thing where, my job is to take the given circumstances of a character, their entire worldview, who they are, and embody that so that it comes out truthfully. And one of the things that's been such a pleasure and honor to work on with this series specifically is all that stuff is layered in there. So if I just have to show up and be open to it and take it on and go, and by this point, that's what we're doing. And there's obviously, like what Patrick was saying, the technical level of making sure that, you're breathing in the right places, and that's authentic as that breath goes into the line, or as you take off for the chase towards the thing, whatever it is. I mean, yeah, it was unbelievable to start that episode that way, with that pep talk, with the harken back to Stain, who just personally is such a fascinating character to me, and then to where it goes. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. It's interesting to be asked these questions, because it's really hard to articulate. There's so much emotion there, and so much investment. So yeah, I was jazzed.
Yeah, not just emotion and investment, but just honestly years of building up to this. Yeah, I totally
Right.
understand. And you said it so clearly. Of an actor's job is to kind of embody the moment or whatever the scene calls for. What was it like to embody a fighter jet for an ice fighter jet for a couple seconds?
Yeah. You mean with the Edith? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that he gives him. Well, I don't want to. People haven't seen it, but yeah, the fact that there's a moment where he's handed something and he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're doing this. All right, yeah, yeah." It was amazing. There was a point where I think there was a reaction that I had to give of taking off with that speed, and it's funny. It's funny because we've been doing this, the three of us, for so long. I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh yeah, sure, right. Oh, so he's taking off at a high speed, and I need to make the sound of what that would be like, and you just do it, and, and here we are, moving on. So yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So kind of going through the episode beats, right? Kind of the next big one we see is with Endeavor holding off Dabi. And honestly, the first thing that stood out to me was Dabi's kind of voice distortion, because he's in this mode of just kind of pure survival instincts, and kind of just as someone who has a love for the craft, right? Jason, I'm wondering what that process was like, because at least from what I was hearing, there was almost like different layers of pitches coming from Dabi. Were you doing several takes for the editors to kind of overlay each take, or was that all post-production? Were they making you scream those lines over and over again to get all of that right? Or
I mean,
what was that like?
thankfully, Mike McFarland is directing these days. He's finishing it up. But no, he's kind, and he's merciful. Something like that, especially in that particular session, and no ego, but that's me trying to, I don't know, mitigate my emotional roller coaster that I'm trying to tamp down, not necessarily tamp down, but control. Like, I think I don't have the danger of the embers going out, as Patrick said. I mean, it was going to happen. Like, most definitely, I was not going to get away from it. But to kind of maintain my ability to do what I needed to do, and be emotionally true, but also, I don't know, this guy is literally burning himself apart and becoming effectively a bomb in that moment. I mean, and to try to put physicality to that through your voice is a weird challenge. And we did a few takes. But Mike is the kind of director, we listen together and he's like, what do you think? And, if I think I can get something that sounds a little bit more like what I think is happening in that moment, if I can find a way to make it more true for me, then I feel like it'll play that way for the audience. But yeah, I have not seen the final edit, the final with all three of us. So that will happen soon. But yeah, that's all I can say about that, man. That's just trying to do it.
And to kind of follow up on like a little bit of the kind of finding the performance and finding what you can bring to this, what was it like? Because honestly, for me, one of the biggest heartbreaks of this episode is obviously Dabi not being fully cognizant of the situation, right? Like he screams out like he wants to play with Natsuo and stuff. Like, what was that like for you to kind of give these big, almost crazed performance, but to kind of deliver these lines that definitely contrast with the situation?
Well, for me, not knowing what's coming, and thankfully, again, Mike McFarland is very generous in this. You feel like you're that kind of actor that needs to not know what's going to happen in order to get the best possible, most truthful emotional response out of it. Man, honestly, I was just hopeful that he was potentially, he kept remembering these moments where things weren't what they became. And it made me for a second think maybe he's going to remember the time before it went bad. And maybe there's redemption in there. Maybe somehow it's not going to end up the way that I think it's going to end up. Mm-hmm. But then he turned again and that did not come to pass, obviously. And that's even more heartbreaking. I mean, every time I pulled away from the mic, I'm just like, keep it together. Come on, man. Come on. Like, I mean, it was, Patrick, man, it was rough. It was weird. And I never expected, I'll reiterate, to have that in anime is like, man, that's a trip and what an honor. But wow.
I just have to say, I think that what you just described is in your performance. I mean, the sort of almost like, could there be a chance? And I found myself affected by that so much as I was recording. So yeah, it was fascinating to hear that.
Can I be honest? I'm literally dimpling up with chills as we talk about this, like in real time. It's anyway.
And that's totally understandable. It's a very emotional episode from many different aspects. All of your performances, even some of just like the kind of little shots, right? Like the one where Dabi kind of is imagining himself as like a teenager and Endeavor has his arm on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. Like that is, I think, is going to go down as like one of the most heartbreaking moments in the entire series. So no, it's very understandable of like kind of even like thinking back and reliving it all that I know is a bit fresh for y'all. So the kind of one thing I wanted to loop back to, Jason, was you said earlier that there was a line you needed from Patrick to help kind of get you to a certain moment. Do you remember what that line was?
I do. I absolutely do. I remember, I don't remember it verbatim, and I'm so sorry. The UPS guy that I keep missing is now knocking on my door, which is a terrible timing. One second.
Yeah. You go do your thing. Patrick, we've had you kind of, we're going to get you off the bench here. To bring it to you, another heartbreaking moment is when Endeavor realizes that Toya very, very, very deep down had raised quirk all along. That is finally coming out on pure survival instincts. And first off, not even a question. This goes for all of you. I just want to applaud you for your performance here in this internal monologue, because obviously Endeavor has had so many introspective moments these last few seasons, most notably the scene where he's crying on the hospital bed in season 6. But somehow you were able to kind of make this your most devastating performance yet, with the mix of realization, regret, and acceptance. the question pretty much is, how do you do it? But really, like, what was that process to make this moment stand out on its own and not just be the same energy as some of the previous big emotional moments for Endeavor?
I mean, thankfully, the show does such a good job of earning those new emotional plateaus. It's never like, okay, we haven't really earned, but now you have to be sadder than you were. It's worse than last time. You have to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I mean, thankfully, the show takes them there to that new place and then says, okay, feel what you would feel here. And I think in that moment, especially when Ray's quirk manifests in him, as is so often the case in life, you get the thing that you want, and suddenly it comes with a caveat. You don't want the thing, or it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. And this is a dude who has, no pun intended, burned so many aspects of his life to the ground for this goal. And he finally gets it, and it doesn't matter at all in that moment. It's just this huge vista of regret, conceivably opening up in front of someone in that moment where you're like, oh, it was there all along. Cool. All of these choices that I made, all these regrettable, far-reaching, painful, horrible choices that were made, and it was there all along. I mean, there's a lot of gut punches in that episode, and that is such a quick one. It's easy for that one to get lost in the midst of everything else that's going on. But it is definitely like, oh, there it was.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a fantastic read on everything that's going on, especially in Endeavor's kind of point of view. Jason, I hope you got your package delivered safely.
I did. It's my new phone. It's been 3 days, and the guy keeps putting the sticker on my door.
Oh, no.
I had to sign for it, and
Oh, okay.
I knew he was going to show up during this. He either shows up at this time or when I'm picking my kid up from school.
Yeah, always the perfect times. So yeah, to bring it back to you, Jason, what was the line you needed from Patrick?
When he indicates that he should have gone back to the mountain and gotten Dabi, Toya, and it's hard for me to even talk about that, man. That I don't know. That was. I'm going to explain something about myself personally and why I relate to this in the way that I do. When I was 3, my folks split, and my mother opted to give full custody to my father, and she left the state. And so I didn't see my mother very often, to the point that I would think strange women I did not know were my mother, and my father would have to stop me from going and talking to these women when I was a small child. And so I relate to this character in a way that comes from my very being. And I'm not telling you this because I feel sorry for myself. This made me the man I am, and I'm proud of the man that I am. And it made me the actor that I am, and it made me the father that I am. But when Endeavor tells Toya that he should have gone back, that he made a mistake, like that, I remembered being that kid that kept wondering what was wrong with me, like why. And I don't know that. Yeah, I guess I answered it, but
yeah.
But that still resonates, and the way that Patrick said it, he meant it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he meant it, and I could tell that my friend meant it.
Yeah,
and I wanted to hear that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And now I'm hearing it from somebody I respect and I love, and also from. There's too many layers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does make the job somewhat easier on a certain level. It's also challenging on a certain level, and I don't mean to take the air out of the room, but
this is a heavy episode. Don't apologize.
But yeah, that moment was, I think I backed off and screamed, and the crew was like, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, everything's fine."
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was really curious, and I kind of love that we had that little pause that we asked this question of what that line was going to be for Jason, and then we took a minute and to know, I didn't know what line you were going to say, but I remember seeing that. Now I didn't hear it, right? I was just looking at the script. but that line has an impact on me as well. I don't know what, there is such a, it embodies this thing that if you've lived a human life at all in some way, you know, and other, you know, people have different relationships to this, but that idea of a choice, and Patrick alluded to this earlier, of a choice that you could have made that you didn't make.
Yeah.
And one that potentially could have made all the difference in so many people's lives that you love. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, I found myself as the character and as myself wishing, what would it have been like if he had gone, you know? It's brutal.
It's and the blocking of that moment too, because there's that close up of him putting his hand out onto Toya's chest, which I mean, I can't really think of other examples off the top of my head in the series where he is like, you know, actually, you know, making contact with one of his kids in like a loving, nurturing way. This is a character that has raised his hand in anger to a lot of people in his family a lot of times. That shot just broke me, and I sort of similar to what Jason was saying. I mean, saying those lines, hearing that said by this kind of character, definitely filled in gaps on my own family history coverall bingo card. Things that I had not heard, reconciliations that I had not had, and so suddenly be in that position of having to say those things. It's a real I don't want to say fraught because that's pejorative, but it really is sort of the undiscovered country. You know what I mean? You don't sort of know what you're going to feel and what you're going to encounter and how it's going to go until you're in the thick of it, and you can't brace yourself for it. You can't prep. You can't, like, you know, plant your feet for the wave to come in. You just sort of have to trust that it's going to be okay. And that comes down to having, you know, great source material and great scripts and a really great director and a great engineer, you know, everyone else doing their best job to just let you feel what you're going to feel and see how that unfolds, and then, you know, use it to its greatest effect.
Yeah.
I want to thank all three of you just for, you know, being vulnerable and kind of sharing what connects you to this story. Just as a quick second, just because I know the Todoroki family saga is one that I think a lot of people connect to emotionally for a lot of similar reasons, and it is kind of, I think for a lot of people out there who will be watching, I think it'll be kind of heartwarming is the wrong word, but it'll mean something to a lot of people that it also really emotionally resonated with the three of you in connecting with these characters and bringing, you know, your real life kind of scenarios to this, because I think it means a lot to a lot of people out there, and I think it'll mean even more knowing that it means so much to the three of you. So I just wanted to thank the three of you for sharing and being vulnerable. And I knew this was gonna, you know, kind of it's a heavy episode, so I knew this was kind of gonna be the mood and the vibe. Don't get thrown off with our company name, Kind of Funny. We get real here. Don't worry about that whatsoever. I want to pull back from the episode and kind of do a little bit of a retrospective here. Obviously, this episode, you know, in and of itself, I think it's a very big, impactful episode for so many, for the three of you, obviously. But the Todoroki family saga as a whole has had many twists and turns, every which ways in season 2. For each of you personally, maybe outside of this episode, maybe it is this episode, what would you say was the most impactful moment for yourself for the Todoroki family story? David, I would love to start with you.
There's so many, and they build on each other, right? I mean, there isn't one without the other. So any one that comes to mind could be the answer, but I will say that the one that impacted me the most, it's hard to say because this episode is all of that. It kind of encompasses all of the moments that have built to this episode. they're kind of all in there. So, the catch-all answer is that. But I will say that season 6, there's the reveal happens that episode, and there's a certain amount of panic that's happening, and Endeavor and Shoto are there, and we've seen Shoto up to that point kind of dancing around Endeavor. I mean, he makes choices to engage with Endeavor in different ways, which I also find unbelievably fascinating. When he shuts it down, when he decides to engage, I think that journey is very fascinating. But in this particular moment, he is pleading with Endeavor with such a sense of desperation. Oh man, I have to try not to connect to it right now, or I won't be able to talk about it. But it's like that. I mean, I think what you see is like we're so connected to it that. So I'm in that recording, and he says he's pleading with Endeavor, and he screams, "Dad!" And it's one of the first times. I think it's the first time that he didn't say "my father" or Endeavor, or which is how he has addressed it to keep distance in a way, whether he's aware of that or not, in my opinion, obviously, to keep distance and keep doing his life, and in that moment, he screams, "Dad!" Like, do something, don't just stand there, Dad. Yeah. And I saw the script. Obviously, I watched the preview, and we did it. And it wasn't until after I screamed that I had to take a step back, and everything came rushing up, and I realized, wow, like that moment was so strong. What he needed in that moment was so strong that all of the managing of the relationship, like you do when there's been trauma or whatever, went out the window, and it was just cut to the thing. It was the most vulnerable, and because of what he needed he needed it so badly. And that to me still is, I think it's the most impactful for me because of what was needed in that moment. And also the way that it impacted me was shocking. I did not expect it. Even after I saw that was the line I was going to be saying. Then I said it in the moment with the desperation, with the need behind it, and everything came up. And it was at that moment that I realized, man, the work that we've been doing up to this point is all there. And Jason has said this, and I feel the same. It's an unbelievable honor to get to be able to participate in this story. And so yeah, that moment is, I'll always remember that.
That's a beautiful one. Jason, it seems like this episode in particular was a big one for you. Yeah. Was there any other kind of big moments throughout the Todoroki family saga that really kind of stuck with you?
There've been a number of them, like David was saying, but for me, nothing can really. I feel like in this one episode, I don't know, you finally see a little bit of him without his armor, not in flashbacks. Before that, you did see him try to return home, and seeing Endeavor with his brother, and seeing that he says that nothing had changed. And that was also a really rough moment, I got to admit. But nothing really quite compares to what we just did. There is a moment, and there's no dialogue, but it's when they, and I say they pan because I know it's animated. Anyway, they pan to Endeavor's face when the reveal happens, and his eye is just twitching in disbelief, and you can almost see the gears turning, and the thoughts just pinging around his brain. He's at a loss, completely and utterly, emotionally, physically. He doesn't know what to do. I also feel like in this last one, though, Endeavor, you finally see him. You see his humanity for the first time. I feel like. And it's, I don't know, it's this crazy moment.
Patrick, how about yourself?
I think for me it would be this most recent episode where it all came to a head. But I think I only feel that way because of all the seeds we've been planting along the way, obviously in the source material itself, but also the work that we've been specifically doing in the English dub.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when you're doing the thing, you are having to, bring more to the table than what is being provided. But I feel like this was definitely one of those cases where it was all there. It was all inside us from all that we've been doing over the years. And it was just a matter of pulling out the pin and just letting it happen. And that's not to take away from the process or what we do. I'm not saying it's like falling off a log, but we'd been doing the work and it had been real and had been honest for so long that really you just had to put the least little spark to that kindling and it was off. Like it's amazing to me that for all of the screaming and yelling and roaring I've done over the years as the English voice of Endeavor, that it finally all culminates in this moment where he's almost not even clear. He's not even cogent. I mean, the words almost aren't even coming out. I remember Mike McFarland, I think that final speech he has, I think we did it 2 times, maybe 3. And I think he ended up going with the one where he said, give me one, worried less about the clarity, less about the presence, just let it be as broken and incomprehensible as it's going to naturally be. And if it's too much, we can obviously, bring you back and have the pendulum swing the other way. And so I was just like, don't gotta tell me twice. And you can barely hear him by the end of that speech as he finally turns it to Shoto.
Oh man, I just have to say that series of lines where he's addressing, that's not easy to do. Just in general, and then with all that emotion and everything, I mean, it was amazing, and I it's just such a beautiful moment, and man, I'm just glad to witness it.
Yeah,
I was so impressed by the two of you, like seriously, because the stuff that Jason's doing, like with all the the affect and the extra stuff, like that could get in the way so easily, but it doesn't. It just deepens it and enriches it. And then, when Shoto shows up, everything you're having to do, like tired and spent, and with the flap and with the breath, like that wasn't easy either. That was sort of like, I felt like it was like running a combine, like hopping through the tires, like one-legged, but also with all of this emotion. Like you guys, you blew me away, you guys.
Yeah,
Wow.
I feel the same way about you guys.
Likewise.
Yep.
You mentioned in the beginning, Patrick, about nervousness and I understand that completely because I distinctly, as the further we've gotten into this, the closer to the end, the more weight of responsibility I've felt, in part just to honor the performances of my brothers here. I mean, it's like that's part of it. It's like being on a sports team. We're at the end of the game, and you need one more. You got to go in there. I mean, and that's a terrible metaphor, but it does feel like something like that. It's anyway.
Yeah.
Being a peer viewer here, all 3 of you, I think really brought your all a moment that I just kind of want to shout out is kind of at the end and everything's kind of cooled down, literally and figuratively. Dabi's kind of spewing out these kind of hateful kind of jabs at everybody, and Endeavor kind of having that moment of, yes, just get it all out and just let's have a conversation, which I think is also beautiful because Dabi in his head, even though he'll never admit it maybe out loud, he's thinking as well of like, I wish we could argue about things, and I wish there was, I want to say more. And so, yeah, overall, fantastic episode. Fantastic performance by all 3 of you and your co-stars as well, who aren't here today. I just want to applaud all of you for this. And we're kind of getting to the end of of our time here. So I want us to take a deep breath. We've talked about some very serious topics, some very raw and pure emotions, and so I want to kind of bring it back and kind of alleviate some of the emotions here, and end on a bit of a more of a fun note, kind of get us back into a rhythm for the rest of our days here, and so I want y'all to clear your heads. I'm going to give you each a few rapid fire questions, just something fun, just to kind of let go a little bit and think about some other things. And so, yeah, do a little stretch, think about it, all that stuff. Clear your brain. Patrick, I'm going to you first.
Brain cleared.
If you had to pick between having an arm made of flames or a mustache made of flames, which would you choose?
Arm.
Something NG never forgets about his wife is that her favorite flower is the Rindo flower. What is your favorite type of flower?
Ooh, favorite flower? Lantana, I think they're called. The little clustery ones are like yellow and red and orange. It's kind of fiery.
yeah.
I didn't do that on purpose. But I think they're called Lantana.
It's very in character for you. Out of all of Endeavor's ultimate moves, which one gets you the most hyped up to yell out in the recording booth?
Definitely Prominence Burn.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Now, I know I said these are going to be lighter questions. I might have lied here on this one. In one sentence, what has Endeavor taught you about being a teacher/mentor?
Oh, Endeavor has taught me that you need to get out of your own way and do what's right for people. Do what's right for them. Don't make it about you. Don't be the stage dad. Don't be the weird drama teacher who's like bitter and hung up. Really, like, do what's right for them.
I love that. And then last question for you. Do you find yourself randomly yelling Shoto in your daily life?
Sometimes, but not gratuitously. Not gratuitously. I feel like it's usually when David is around to hear it. Just
Okay,
for maximum
so a healthy amount.
Yeah, a completely normal amount of times.
Jason, I'm going to bring it to you.
All right.
When we get the reveal that Dabi is really Toya Todoroki, he pours water on himself to reveal that his hair is white instead of black. If you ever dyed your hair, what color would you choose?
White.
I love that. At one point, Dabi tells Spinner that he gets easily carsick. Do you get easily carsick as well?
I do not.
I'm jealous of you. Anytime I look at my phone, it's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm done.
No,
for the rest of the
motion
day.
sickness. I don't know. I'm lucky, but no.
I love that. So you probably do very well in VR. Also jealous of you on that. The first arc where Dabi really came into the fold in a major way was the training camp arc. Do you enjoy camping? And if so, what is your favorite camping activity?
I love camping, and I would say canoeing.
Ooh,
Or
I like
building a
that.
fire is pretty nice, but that's on the nose, right?
Yeah. Same question I gave to Patrick. Which of Dabi's ultimate moves gets you most hyped up to yell in the recording booth?
I've only gotten to do it once, but Hell Spider.
Oh, yes, that's a good one. And final question for you. At one point in season 5, Dabi mentions he hates fish. Do you enjoy seafood? And if so, what's your favorite dish?
Absolutely, I enjoy seafood. My favorite fish would be red snapper.
Ooh,
And I'll take it broiled on the half shell with some red sauce.
All right, Patrick is going to get right on that for you.
Thanks,
for your Now, David, over to you to round out. Now we're going to start with the same question I've already given Patrick and Jason. Which of Shoto's ultimate moves gets you most hyped up to yell in the recording booth?
I think it would be Flash Fire Fist jet kindling. I just having to get jet kindling but Great Glacial Ayir is also that one is not as like potentially explosive, but it's kind of magic in what it's done. So I'm gonna go with that. I have to
like
say
that.
too, I'm more nervous about these questions than I have been about anything else in this entire conversation.
You got this, David.
right.
You got this.
Yeah, we're going to breeze through them, and it's going to be over before you know it. If you had the opportunity to receive only half of Shoto's quirk, which would you choose between fire and ice?
Ooh.
You live in Texas.
I mean, fire. It's always been fire.
Okay, I love that. The first arc we got a real look into Shoto's backstory was the sports festival arc, where the first test is a race through an obstacle course. Have you ever competed in anything similar, like mud running or anything?
No, the only thing I've never done any mud running. That reminds me of like, field day in like elementary school, and like
Yeah.
a sack race would probably be the closest thing. Or,
Okay.
yeah.
Were you as successful in sack racing as Shoto was in that obstacle course?
Yeah, I think I was pretty competitive. I was,
Okay.
there might have been some, I don't know, incident like tripping and some things
Oh,
happened.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
elbows.
Oh, whoops.
Whoops, shouldn't have been standing there. Yeah.
Yep. The elementary school students Shoto once worked with in special training often refer to him as Five Weenies. Do you think that Five Weenies would make a good hero name for Shoto?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, God, I have to know. Yes, that's my
Okay.
answer.
Is that how
Okay.
many are in a pack? I can't remember.
Could be. It could be.
And final question for you, David. Do you enjoy your soba warm or cold?
Cold.
I like that. That's very in character.
Yeah.
Everybody or gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for your time. If people wanted to kind of keep up with you and your works, is there any good place for everybody to find you? David, let's start with you.
Yeah, lately Instagram has been my jam. It's Matranga David, just all one word, Matranga David. And I'm spending a little bit more time on TikTok, having fun there as well. I
Oh.
think that's the real Matranga. Yeah.
Okay. Jason, how about you?
I am on Instagram solely, and that would be E. Liebrecht. It's my first initial, my last name. My first name is Ernesto, so E. Liebrecht. Altogether, it's me in a unicorn mask standing in front of a
Okay.
Christmas tree with my kid.
And Patrick, how about yourself?
I'm trying to get better about Instagram. I know that's where the hip folks are. I'm there as Sights Unseen. I think there's an underscore. I'm also on Twitter. It's always gonna be Twitter. As Sights Unseen with an underscore because I like stupid puns. Some point I'm gonna go over to Blue Sky because everything just keeps getting
Yeah.
worse. So I think I'm already there. Like I have a spot staked out. I just haven't been posting, but I should. So maybe this will push me over the wall to start.
Awesome. Lovely. Again, thank you once again for all of your time. And if you are a dub watcher of the show, just a reminder that the finale, the English dub finale, it will be coming out, I believe, this Saturday, October 26th at 12 p.m. Pacific. So look forward to that. We're going to take the show back to the main desk with myself and Mike, where we're going to get into spoilers about the entire season. So if you are a dub watcher, I would appreciate if you bookmarked this video, and then after the English dub finale comes out, come back and get into the spoilers with Mike and myself. But let's take it back over to the main desk. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the desk. That was a fantastic interview. I definitely
Fantastic interview from Barrett, y'all.
Definitely didn't mess it up. Definitely still not nervous about it whatsoever. So if you're an English dub watcher and you have not finished the season because you're waiting for the finale of the English dub to come out this weekend, maybe bookmark this episode here and then come back once the finale comes out this weekend because we're about to get into the entire spoiler-filled part of the season. And we're going to start off with a little bit of a recap because a lot happens in these 10 episodes, Mikey. So we're going to do a little bit of a recapping here just to give us a quick refresher on all of the different aspects that are happening in this final war, right? Following the death of Katsuki Bakugo, things start to look dire for our heroes in the fight for Japan's future. A believed to be defeated Dabi learns to copy his brother's phosphor move, which gives him a second wind. All for One has an engineered copy of Ares' rewind quirk, so he begins to heal himself at the expense of his age. And America and other countries stand by to see if they need to start playing nice with quote-unquote Shigaraki, because he's kind of Shigaraki, but kind of All for One at the same time.
Yeah.
There's like the two personalities
They're
kind of
still
fighting
blending
within.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. This all leads to Deku finally arriving on the scene of the Flying UA with the help of Star and Stripes bros to battle Shigaraki and to find his lifelong friend dead on the ground. As Midoriya begins to explode with rage, Mirio calms him by telling him Edgeshot is currently performing heart surgery on Bakugo, which puts our main hero at ease. Deku battles Shiggy for one with his newly unlocked quirk, Gear Shift, from the second One For All user, while trying to reach out to Shigaraki in particular in hopes to still save the boy from his evil master. Meanwhile, we see various battles play out. Spinner leads a riot at Central Hospital to free Kurogiri/Shirakumo and succeeds, which leads Kurogiri to fully turn this battle in the villain's favor. He transports Dabi and Toga to Endeavor and Hawks' location, where Toga reveals her big play in using twice as blood to overwhelm the heroes. Ochako and Froppy follow Toga through the Warp Gate to join Team Endeavor on the battlefield. Kurogiri also warps twice clones to UA and overwhelms Aizawa and Monoma, which finally gives Shigaraki the freedom to use all of his quirks. When all seems lost in that battle, Deku and company get the help from unexpected backup. That's right, Gentle Criminal, La Brava, and even Lady Nagant, while Kurogiri glitches out and takes Aizawa and Present Mike off the board. Back with Team Endeavor, Hawks and Tokoyami, along with students from Shiketsu High, Mount Lady, and Gigantomachia, with Shinsho and Kirishima riding on his head, fight against All For One, who becomes younger and younger with the more damage he takes.
Younger and hotter.
Younger and hotter. He now has a face card. All For One eventually cleans house, steals Hawks' quirk, and leaves to get to Shigaraki, since he can sense that his protege is fighting back against his will. Afterwards, Endeavor and Dabi have an emotional final showdown where Endeavor is backed up by his own family, Rei, Natsuo, Fuyumi, and eventually Shoto, to cool down Dabi and prevent him from completely destroying everything within a 5-kilometer radius. And as Ochako and Toga have one final emotional battle of their own, resulting in Toga sacrificing herself for Uraraka, All Might comes out of retirement in his new high-tech suit of armor akin to Iron Man and Batman to fight All For One and stop him from reaching Deku and Shigaraki, to be continued in the final season of My Hero Academia. Mike, where the hell do you want to start?
Where do you start? That was 10 episodes of just jam-packed action.
Yeah.
Like, we started the season off by getting everyone in 3 different areas, and then we've just been jumping back and forth. Everyone's got things going on. Man, some great call-outs. There were some people that showed up that I didn't think were going to show up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now that we're in full spoilers, like you talked about, I did not know we'd get Gentle Criminal and La Brava in here. I did not think we'd get that cool girl with
Vindication!
the cool girl with the sniper rifle and the purple hair. I love her. And I didn't think we were going to see Stain out of nowhere.
What's Stain up to?
What the fuck was that? Now, that's
What's
just like,
Stain up to?
That's quite literally one scene. It was just like, look at him, we're out.
Because he was kind of near, if
That
I'm remembering
shit was
correctly,
crazy.
he's kind of near Shoto and Ingenium,
Yeah.
right? And like during the call with All Might, and they're
Yeah.
like going off and all that stuff. And All Might's kind of near them, so he might be near All Might. We don't
That was
exactly know. And I love that because
crazy.
like, yeah, like we know he's out and about, because in the last season when All Might is like, oh, I'm a failed, I'm nobody needs me, it's Stain out of all people who are like, who are you? You're not All Might. Like, he's doing the kind of like weird, like crazy mentor thing where it's like, who are you? And like, what does it actually mean to be All Might type of shit? And I love that they're like, hey, he's still out and about. Just as a little reminder.
He's out there. 1B shows up, and they're strong as can be. Or not 1B, but like
Shiketsu
whole nother
High.
school.
Yeah.
The other school. And it's like, oh shit, like the Twister guy is there, and that girl's there. Like, it was like, that was
Kami
cool.
with all of the Kami who like has all of the Gen Z lingo, which is so
my-
fucking funny.
Some great, just like, hey, everyone is involved.
Everybody's
and
here.
everyone's here.
Yep.
And it's like, that was some really, to me, those were some of the moments that I'll never forget of like, oh shit, we really just have this jabroni in here right now?
Mm-hmm.
Well played.
Yeah, I really love in the manga when it was revealed of like, yeah, La Brava, it makes sense because she's like a huge tech person. Like they know that UA is getting hacked by that one like long-haired
Yes.
dude, and so she's fighting back against that. I love that they have like a little history that they get back into, and then the moment of Gentle Criminal the reveal of him just kind of T-posing, bouncing near like the ocean, and then the kind of amp up of like the distance makes the heart grow fonder, which powers up her
That
quirk,
was beautiful.
which powers up his quirk, and he does that huge fucking thing. And I love that it comes back to like he is saving people from falling, and that was what led him down this path of villainy, was because all he wanted to do was save somebody, and he failed at doing so.
Yeah.
And that is such a beautiful thing, because like I know like unfortunately Kevin isn't here in the background because he's also a big My Hero fan, but you and Kevin talk so much shit about
Hated
season
that
4.
season, yeah.
I love season 4 so much that especially like the cultural festival or whatever, the whole like music being another like superpower and all that stuff like means a lot to me. Seeing Aerie smile for the first time in that arc means a lot to me. And so to bring back that villain and like his tragic backstory, and to like make it so that like obviously we have villains like All For One who are irredeemable, right? They're just in it for the fucking love of the game of being evil. But then you have these people who are just have been unfortunately lost in the cracks that I think like show this path, and I think are a really good foil to the League of Villains, because I don't think any of them, the people who are part of the League of Villains, are anybody who is purely evil. They are also these people who got lost in the cracks because of their unfortunate conditions, right? And they never had somebody reach out to them and say, I am here. And so I think to see this path for some of these less intense criminals like Gentle Criminal, like Lady Nagant, right? To see them get redeemed in these like small little moments, I find really touching. And you can't not like, this fucking got me. I am crying my eyes out at the main like and fucking Gentle Criminal is like talking about like how much like he like his love for La Brava, and then the reveal that like, and this is something we talked about last season, is that there were 7 prisons that were broken into, but only 6 of them had like all of the people released. What happened to that 7th prison? And we finally get the reveal that it was Gentle, and it was because of his inspiration from Deku and talking to Deku. And like I love his little appreciation where he was like, this was the incredible school I was trying to break into. Like I can't believe I was almost going to be a huge dick to these people. Like they're all incredible for all different reasons. And I fucking love that. I love that. Like you can really feel like the story is finally kind of coming to a close, because it really feels like, all right, now we're finally bringing back and wrapping up so many different threads that have been planted for a few years at this point.
Man, Barrett,
where do you want to go next? Because I've been talking a lot.
No, I love when I mean, that's the issue, is we can go anywhere, Barrett. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be the fun part for the audience out there, is we're going to jump. Because like we're going to go left, right, and center. Like Hawks losing his power.
Oh my
you know what I mean? If I'm just throwing darts at a board, can we talk about when that guy grabbed a hold of Hawks and sucked out his power and stole his wings? That was badass,
tragic,
scary as can be. That was wild, bro. That was some wild behavior.
And he did it all protecting Tokoyami, because he did not want Tokoyami, because he knows obviously like the danger of All For One having a power like Tokoyami's with Dark Shadow, but then also because Tokoyami's his fucking boy,
That's
right?
his boy, bro.
And
that's
I love
his
that
guy.
Even Grape Juice gets his little moment where he's like, "Don't take his power. You're just gonna turn into like a fucking edgy emo teen.
Take mine, yeah."
And I like Grape Juice. Mineta. There's always that annoying, weird, pervy character in a shonen, right?
Of course.
But even him having a kind of, even though it's small, having this heroic, like, no, fucking fight me instead of somebody else. Like, even he gets to have like a little bit of like, right, he's at the school for a reason. He is becoming a hero for a reason.
Yeah, all there. Okay, ready for another jump? Because I'm gonna take you places, Bear. Because I know what we're gonna work towards. But let's talk about Midoriya showing up and how powerful that was. When he uses the Black Whip to fly into the box and like the flying coffin in the air, and he has that first moment where he shows up, the music hits, the animation is just right, where like it hits, where you're like, oh shit, Midoriya's here.
Yeah.
And he's coming to save the day, and we're gonna have a square off, and like it's powerful. There's like a pause there where he's mid-flight and he looks and they look, and you're like, uh-oh, he's about to beat this dude up.
And Bakugo dead on the fucking ground, man. And like him like blowing up, and Shigaraki kind of clocking that that's what was going to happen. And then thankfully Mirio being there like, nobody's been lost yet. Like, it looks fucking dire. How do you feel
And he
before
has
we
all
get
the
into
cool animation going on. And he's like, you got to bring yourself back, bro.
Yeah.
You're going to lose it.
And so before we get into that fight, how do you feel about oh my god, who is it? Let's see. If I find Mirio, where is Edshot performing open heart surgery on Bakugo?
Pretty badass.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the kids are the future. They know that. All these pros know that. And these kids they are pushing themselves beyond, which we're seeing with villains and heroes in the second half, right? It's like we are learning that you can take your powers beyond what you're normally accustomed to, and you can go even greater. And like, I think the pros know that these kids are the future and they got to help each other. And it's like, that guy was like, yo, Best Genius can't do what needs to be done to save this kid. I got to go. And then he starts freaking becoming the needle in the thread. And you see him and like his body's going away. And he looks at it, he's like, there's no coming back. Like, once I go this small, I'm not coming back. And it's like, oh, that guy's just gone now to save Bakugo, which is wild.
I think my one thing with it is that I wish that just from like a storytelling perspective, why do I keep blanking on this man's name? Edshot. And that's like a problem here, is that I wish that Edshot meant a bit more to Bakugo, or that Bakugo meant a bit more to him. Edshot's a cool character. We've seen him throughout the series, but he's definitely been minor. Him and Bakugo don't really know each other in any sort of way. So I always, when this was kind of coming out in the manga originally like a year or two ago, it was kind of like that guy? Okay. All right. Interesting. And like seeing it adapted, that was still one of the moments where I was like, it still doesn't quite hit for me. I love the message of like, this is the future. We cannot let the future down here. Yeah. I just wish it was maybe like if we had a bit more time with Edshot, where maybe like, you know, Bakugo trained under Best Genius. Maybe like he trained with Best Genius under a time when Genius and Edshot were teaming up, and so Bakugo just like a little bit of a
feels like
more
a throwaway character of like,
a little
this guy's got a special move. He's going to be used here, but like. I don't know. Maybe for me, I don't need Best Genius also going, so we all can be like, my best friend, my hero, gave up everything for it. It's like,
and that's totally fine. And like, if it's gonna be Edshot, I would like it to have Edshot have a bit more,
a little more. But like, it was cool. Like, Best Genius is there, and like he's trying his best to save him. Like, you know, those two are tied together forever. Like, it is pretty cool. But yeah, that whole, I mean, Sun Eater going above and beyond with like the big three teaming up to try to distract him so Sun Eater can pull off, hopefully, one big move to slow this freaking monster down. And all of them are giving their all. And it's like, man, he's got so many different things he's now eating.
Yeah, he's just like listing them off.
To make
so
this
good.
giant gun. And he turns and he's like, I'm coming after you. Like, you're not getting that shot off. It was like, that was pretty badass.
It's
bro.
crazy.
Yeah.
And so the Midoriya Shigaraki fight finally starts, and we get to finally see, I think this is the last quirk that we get the reveal for, which is Gear Shift. And so what did you think about Gear Shift?
It looks cool.
Yeah.
The animation is very stylish.
I love where they
cool.
first kind of reveal it, and he's kind of like revving up and all that stuff. And like, it's such an interesting quirk of like being able to shift the motion of an object, whether it's slowing it down or like the momentum of something slowing it down or speeding it up, I think is really cool. And I love how they like amp it up, or they build it up of like, this is the quirk that has been in One for All the longest. So it is the craziest, and it is the one most overpowered now. So like, I know like All for One, you're still in there and you're thinking like, oh, his quirk is kind of bullshit. It can only use like fucking little tiny objects. It's been a while, dude.
Yeah,
it's a bit crazier.
Up. Yeah. I love that. And he's like, you get 5 minutes. Like, the timer's on. And so like in the back of your mind, you're like counting it down as he's doing every move. And man, they've really built up Midoriya and the All for One power of like seeing everything at play, from Black Whip to him now flying to the smash, all the power, like the juice flying around him with the colorway. It's like, man, it looks cool on screen. It looks
cool as fuck. And the animation of him doing like the several smashes, and then you have like the red like kind of rings of like energy when he crashes him down into the floor.
Yeah.
Fucking insane.
I mean, it's a very cool mix with who we're seeing. You know, what's the bad guy's name again?
Shigaraki or All for One?
With Shigaraki of like, right now he's going wild with all the hands and fingers, right? But he's also evolved now too to be even more powerful, right? It's like, we went from just this like crazy ominous monster with a bunch of freaking fingers flying all around the battlefield to, oh, now I'm fighting and I got to be stronger. And then he starts putting the hand armor all over him.
Oh, it's
man,
so
he
cool.
looks cool in that, dude.
And then he finally gets to have his quirks back because he gets who is it, Monoma and Eraserhead kind of get distracted by all the Twice clones for a second, and it's scary.
Yes.
But then we already talked about it, but Lady Nagant shooting his hand off like from like miles
Amazing.
and miles away, fucking
The shot,
insane.
all of the support characters underneath building and trying to keep this thing afloat, along with LaBrava, right? Like you just talked about, like the whole mix of I'm firing up the engines. Okay, the gentleman is trying to keep it all afloat, and these kids are inside trying to figure out how to fire this thing back up, and the business class kids are taking video of like, we're gonna film this and and then LaBrava's like, well, he's going live.
Well,
for
I'm
sure.
gonna stream it.
We're definitely streaming
So
that, y'all.
good.
What a fun time. And like, it's a lot going on. It's very cool to see. It's a team. Like, it's not going to be these two one-on-one. Of course it is, but like, it's way more than that. It's a whole group effort here.
Yeah, 100%. How did you find because we kind of almost got like 2 full episodes on this, the Central Hospital fight, where we had Spinner kind of leading the charge with they're not called Animorphs. What do they call them?
Heteromorphs?
Heteromorphs,
Okay,
thank you.
I didn't know if
I
I
was
was
thinking
right,
about the Animorph book series. And so he's leading kind of the Heteromorphs who have had like kind of this history of being looked down upon in modern hero society, and defending Central Hospital. You have Shoji, Tentacool, and Koda, who's like his hero name is Anima.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
That one was probably the most powerful and like real down to earth 2 episodes out of the bunch right here, for me at least, of like, oh, we're talking about some real stuff right now. And like, we're really getting to the heart of it. And also, we have 2 heroes, which we don't really think about much, right? Like, Animorph doesn't really take off his mask, right? Anima, what do we call it? What did you call him?
Anima, who can talk to...
Yes, he doesn't really take off his mask much, right? So we kind of like mask him being a heteromorph. And then also, Tentacool, like we talk about that, but we don't really have that conversation with these kids like we did with
And he, like,
Spinner.
that was a big face reveal
Yes.
for Tentacool. Of, like, having him showing and having the scar and talking and sharing his past about
when
like
he saved that girl is right. Yeah,
and
that
like
was
this kind of
tough.
small town, and him giving this like very realistic, like kind of very down to earth conversation of like, hey, it's a bit better in the cities where things are a bit more diverse in background, but in like kind of more rural parts, it is still pretty bad.
Yeah.
And to see him kind of like, and for the other heteromorphs who are rioting to like understand where he has come from and to like kind of process that and be like, oh, he's gone through all of this stuff as well, but he's still trying to fight for something, for a light at the end of the tunnel for the future of us. Like, and for all of them to kind of hold back and be like, wait, fuck, I don't think I want this anymore.
Yeah, that was really powerful. And that's why I think those 2 episodes will stick with me, is because we took it to a place, especially with kids close to us, that we haven't really gone with. And then on the other side of Spinner, right, if Spinner didn't lose his mind from All for One, like giving him the superpower, I think we would have had a very cool, like one-on-one. We're both talking about where we came from and the pains that we went through.
And I think Spinner could have been like also convinced.
And that's where I'm like, man, like having Spinner just like this scary monster mode and not really talking was very interesting, because you had the mouthpiece on the bad side who was that like Scorpion, Spider-Man, and like he got shut up, and then like they started listening. They're like, oh wait, like he's right. Like what are we doing here? And I think if we had Spinner on the other side, it would have been a really interesting meeting in the middle, which I would have looked forward to. It's odd that they chose like, oh, he's not speaking. He's full monster mode.
It is one of those things. I understand the agency kind of taken away from Spinner, because he was one of the few still left when All for One was trying to prepare for this. I do think it comes at a hindrance for his story. I would have loved to have seen that. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, he had a good story where it's like he was talking about those issues where we didn't talk about it with the Class 1A kids that much, right? Like I don't think we ever talked about this topic, but with Spinner, it was a topic.
And for these 2 episodes, I would have loved for their, similar to the Bakugo, why do I keep blanking on his name, Edshot thing, I would have loved a bit more backstory on like the heteromorphs and a bit more insight into all of the different aspects of that, to really have this like be like a really emotional, like, holy shit, all of this is coming to a head. Now, to pull the curtains back a little bit here, we're recording Kind of Anime at the same time. Greg Miller and Joey Noel are playing New World Eternum till 5 p.m. And this episode, as usual with Kind of Anime, is going much longer than I expected. And it is turning 5 p.m. in 10 seconds. So we're going to take a quick pause here. I'm going to go run and turn off that stream. And then we're going to continue and talk about a couple of the final beats for this season to wrap up the show. To pull the curtain back again, Big Raj was already on it. Shout out to Roger. He's killing it.
You know what? I've been mean to him. Roger, I love you. You know what I mean? Love you, Roger.
He's definitely watching this. So we just talked about Shoji and the Central Hospital stuff. I think the next
Well, that was a big bit because then they freed the teleport man.
Yeah, Kurogiri.
Yeah, which is like,
that's the first time he's been back on the playing field since like season 3, maybe, I think.
Interesting, because they used him, right?
Yeah,
they used him to teleport everybody. But
I'm pretty sure it was like the end of season 3 when All Might fought All for One.
Okay.
And like his last like kind of battle before he reveals that he's like the tiny dude. I believe that's when they capture Kurogiri, but I might be misremembering.
And we know he has a great story with President Mike and Eraserhead because they all were boys. Yeah. And then they lost him, and it's just like,
and
that
he's been glitching out throughout this entire thing.
Yes, we've seen a couple of that where it's like, oh, we're tugging.
Even
on
when he
something
wakes
where we're
up, he's like, I am, and then you know he. I'm Kurogiri, I'm the protector of Shigaraki and all that stuff, and he warps everybody, and that's where you're like, oh fuck, Toga is off that island, Dabi's awake and he's going to his dad, shit's hitting the fan real quick, and then he glitches out and takes Eraserhead off the board. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that felt to me like I guess like to me, at that moment I took it as like, oh, he's snapping back to like, he's getting the memories back of like, oh shit, am I doing something fucked up? Am I doing something wrong? Should I be friends with my boys again? And so I'm wondering if we'll get that kind of like turnaround of like, oh, we snapped him out of it, y'all. Because it definitely felt like to me of like, you can see him snapping back and forth. And we had that, of course, with Shigaraki, where Lemillion kind of broke through to him for a
he's
second.
like, I have friends.
And it was like, oh, are we getting moments like, and then of course Midoriya as well, right? Midoriya felt the rage and started going the wrong way, and he was like, yo, chill out, bro. So we're kind of getting that in people's moments. I wonder if that's what I'm seeing there. I don't know. What, you just teleported him away? I don't know. It's gonna be wild.
He could be protecting Shigaraki because he knows that having that quirk on the battlefield hinders Shigaraki in using all of this quirk. So we'll see. I think the next kind of big thing I want to jump to is the kind of, I would say, and we, you know, obviously we talked about it in the interview, but the last big kind of climax of the Todoroki family saga. Right? And this was a funny thing. I purposely asked you on the last episode, did you find the fight between Dabi and Shoto satisfying? Because I remember when the manga was coming out, I was like, if this is the final battle, I don't know how I feel about this, because they all kind of like hyped up this dynamic of the family coming together and having a moment with each other. But then they bring it back, right? Dabi gets a second wind, goes to his dad, fights his dad for a little bit, and then it's revealed of like, oh, he's been building up like heat within himself, and he's gonna blow up everything within a 5-kilometer radius. And of course, the family hears about it, and they go off and they back up Endeavor and eventually Shoto as well.
Yeah, there's like this moment where you're like, oh, he's gonna grab him and fly to the sky. Right, like Endeavor's working through it of like, how do I minimize what's about to go down here? What do I do? And I'm like, oh man, Endeavor's gonna sacrifice himself right now, take this kid up and be like, I love you, son, I'm sorry. And they're gonna blow up in the sky. And then out of nowhere, the mom shows up. And you're like, oh my God, that's crazy that she got on the escape pod to go help them. And then like the boys are already on the way. That was a beautiful scene with Todoroki and class captain.
Ingenium, who
oh my God.
Why am I blanking on his real name? But like that, when we're talking about animation, when they take off and like you see like the kind of speed blocks and shit, I just spit a lot. But like, oh my God, like the way that they take off and then they turn into like a fucking ice
frozen jet.
Oh my God.
A lot of bomber jets in this. Ever since we introduced the American side, a lot of bomber jets. It's like pretty wild, but I do love it. I think it's pretty dope
was
looking.
So good. And like, you know, like him asking of like, yo, like you were already burnt out. Like, are you going to be fine running? And he's like, I've been building up, and like the like thrusters come out,
Yes.
and they're even bigger and shit.
And
Oh
you're
my
mixed
God.
with you're cool with my engines. We're gonna make this. And then
Yep.
he's like, I'm not gonna, like, this is it. This is where I'm done. And like he falls apart, and Todoroki's flying. You're like, this is so cool.
It's fucking crazy.
And then the whole family's there. It was a beautiful moment. I'm really looking forward to seeing how you broke it down, because I think you took away so much from this, and like I didn't feel that. I guess
Oh.
I felt it, but I guess I missed something from. I felt like I was missing something from Dabi, where I got the family rallying,
Interesting.
but I didn't. Maybe because it was like, and Dabi in this moment isn't talking much. He's not the Dabi we know, right? Like this is the Dabi that's like gone beyond.
He's
He
fucked
is
up.
breaking down. He's gonna blow up in front of us, but he's not saying the Dabi lines like I was accustomed to.
So for me, the emotional crux of this episode in particular is Dabi, for me, and I think it is because he is kind of losing it at this point, and he is past the point of being fully cognizant of where he's at. I think there's a huge tragedy in him throughout the fight saying things where you're like, oh, you're reliving a memory right now. You think you're a kid right now playing with your siblings, or you think you're a kid and trying to show off to your dad a new ability that you gained. And I think that is the tragedy of that episode that like really broke me in many ways, of like at the end of the day, and especially in the moment where it's revealed that through kind of survival instincts, he does this entire time has had maybe way deep down, he did have this ice power all along that did come out to kind of like give him, as much as he could to survive in that fight, right? And I think that is the tragedy of that is the missed opportunities with Dabi and Endeavor and their relationship. Dabi obviously having this ice quirk not coming out until the final moments of this battle, which he probably didn't even know about until, the survival instinct kind of set in. And at the end of the day, even through all of this hatred, him still wanting those connections. And I think that's like kind of built up in an episode in the first half of the season where we get the backstory of him waking up, right?
Yes.
And it turns out that All For One, this was another seed that All For One had planted of Dabi possibly being a backup for Shigaraki. And Dabi's first instinct was, even though he, was so upset at his family, so upset at his dad, his first instinct was like, no, I want to go home. I want to be with my family. And the tragedy there with like him going home and seeing that nothing had really changed. And all he wanted, it wasn't to burn the family to the ground or anything initially. It was just for something to change, for them to actually feel like a family. And I think him being out of it and kind of reliving these moments in his past, I think are very striking and showcase that. I think the shot of him being a teenager wearing the Dabi gear
so
and Endeavor
cool,
having his
yeah.
arm on his shoulder, like broke me in the manga, broke me again here. By the time of recording, I have waited to watch the English dub version of this, like pretty much for like right before the interview, just so I can have those performances like kind of fresh for that interview. And I'm not ready to watch that episode again, to be honest. And like that is like, I think they ended it perfectly. I think the entire family needed to be there to kind of like really hone in. Like this isn't just a Dabi and Endeavor thing. This is a Dabi and Endeavor and Shoto, Shoto and Dabi and Fuyumi and Natsuo, and even Rei, like all of them and all of their failings, and then Shoto being the person who can show a bright future. I find, I've talked about it before, but I have a very emotional kind of connection to the Todoroki aspect in a lot of ways, and so yeah, that meant a lot to me. So, and again, that's why I'm nervous about
And
this
the
interview.
frozen tears. It all looked good, Barrett. And like you said, having the family show up was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was one where they did so well of like cutting over to the mom and the two kids of like, oh no, they're at the evacuation site. And they're like, they're not coming. And then like out of nowhere, they show up and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like
Yep.
I'm all in for that. And then of course, Endeavor having his family around him. Like we know Endeavor been a bad dad. He's had some tough times. He's tried to make up for it. And like the ending of like the whole family's here and we're going to live through this together is like, oh, that was wild. That's a
It
tough
was wild.
one.
Before we get to our last two beats, I just want to shout out Gigantomachia.
Whoa.
You know, Shinso, at first, Shinso getting, like, using the All for One voice to take over his brain. Fucking awesome. I love Shinso. Anytime that they can use Shinso, I'm all fucking for it. But then they kind of revealed that Gigantomachia also was like, no, I feel betrayed by you.
betrayed
Like,
me. That was
I
crazy.
sensed that you were also Shigaraki, and y'all ran away when I was being captured.
Yeah.
What a fucking reveal.
That was
and
cool.
all three, it's like Gigantomachia, you've got Tokoyami using Dark Shadow, like huge Dark Shadow, all pummeling down on All for One. And then we're getting like the little reveals of like he's getting younger and younger, which again, another payoff from season 4, Mikey. I'm telling you, it's a good season.
It's good.
With Ares Quirk, where they kind of do set up like the like Deku is being rewound in season 4 in that final fight. And then he's like, well, if I just fuck up my body faster than she can rewind me, then it should even out. And so that's how he's doing all that stuff. And I love that they kind of set that up for this, where the more All for One is being damaged, the more he is being rewound. And I fucking love
I love the ending of like, oh, I'm not going to tell him that he's looking younger, but like, I'm noticing something. You're like, shit, that's my dude,
the
bro.
heroes are putting it together
Yeah,
as well, which is good. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out that little bit. But we have two big, kind of big things left. And I'm surprised when you say that nothing really got you to tears. Let's talk about Toga versus Uraraka. Toga, one of your favorite. You got the water bottle of Toga.
Favorites. She's one of my favorites.
And rest
I love
in peace
that gal.
now. And so what did you feel about the Toga and Uraraka kind of final showdown?
That was sweet. It was very sweet. It was heartbreaking. It was sweet. It was touching. It felt like she was too far gone to have that moment, right? Like, I think even Toga was like, she was gone, right? Like, there was a moment where we could have had that conversation, but where we were in the final setup, the fights and all that, like, Toga was gone. There was no saving her with this conversation that Uraraka wanted to bring to her. And it's like, oh, man, that's too bad. Because, like, man, oh, man, when she busts out the twice blood and there's just millions of twice all over the battlefield, like, that was very cool. Yeah. That was definitely well drawn of like, you see the impact of what just transpired.
And I love that none of the heroes thought it was going to be twice. Like, they're like, fuck, does she have like All for One's blood? Does she have Dabi's blood? Like Shigaraki? Like, who's she going to turn into? And it's like, no, motherfucker, we still got twice powers on our side. And like the Hawks' realization of like his worst nightmare, which is why he killed.
He had to do it.
Killed him
was
in
be his
season
homie
6.
too. He was liking
him.
him.
Yeah, it is really tragic. And so yeah, this is what I alluded to in like I going into this half of the season. I was like, oh, the Ochako Toga fight is probably going to be 2 episodes because of the amount of chapters there are in the manga. But I think condensing it all into one in that kind of final conflict where we get the heart to heart between them, I think was a smart move. I think that if they had split that episode into 2 and we kind of get the first half of it of like showcasing how far gone Toga is in terms of her aspect and like realistically showing off of like she's another one who just like fell through the cracks. And if she had just one person who was like, hey, you can be a person and be normal and be who you are without having to have a mask on, she could have been a very, very different person, right?
Got the prettiest smile.
But then we all loop it into one episode, which I think was more effective into like Ochako finally being that person for her and like definitely too late for Toga, but not late enough for her to take Ochako's blood.
Pretty beautiful of like the friendships and the family that she forged with the League of Villains, right? When we look back on her moments with Twice and even Dabi, and then also with Shigaraki of, hey, why aren't you changing your name, Toga? And then like, I'm not changing my name. It's
I'm
like,
gonna live as me.
Yeah, and I was like, man, that's really cool. Of like, she had a family there, and we saw that throughout this whole show. And it's like, that's why it's like, oh, when she had this speech, it's like, well, she's too far gone. Like, she built a family, she was with them, but it was touching at the end of like, it broke through to her, and she laid right down next to her and gave her blood. That was pretty cute. That was crazy.
Rest in peace. And now, All Might coming out of retirement. Mike, did you see this coming whatsoever?
No, honestly, I was like, oh, Deku's going to have to fight both these dudes.
Oh, yeah?
Like, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, how's this setup going to be here? Like, what's going to happen? And we knew he was starting to move to Shigaraki because he knew it was like, I got to be there. And it's like, oh, then he's just going to have to fight both these dudes at once. And like, that would cement Deku as like the GOAT, like, I guess. And it's like, okay, but when we talk about like the end of the season,
he's already struggling just with Shigaraki on his own, though.
It's like, this was the perfect setup of he was like, no, I'm fighting this battle. Like, Homeboy's got his battle. This is my battle. And he shows up with, like, the Batman arsenal.
The Batmobile, but he's doing, like, the Iron Man, like, calling new pieces of armor.
Yes.
And let me tell you, if, like, it got me in the manga, and I forgot about it, and it got me again here, where every move, every aspect of the armor is based off of a kid from 1A. Fuck all the other kids he teaches in, like, 1B and, like, all that stuff. But the 1A, where he's, like, Red Riot's shield and, like, Ingenium and Float and all this stuff, it's like, God, he loves these kids so much, and he is definitely in touch with his feelings on how much they have taught him, you know, being a hero. And even the fact of, like, learning from Deku of, like, these support items, where he's like, don't get too reliant, like, a piece of advice he gives Deku when Deku starts incorporating more kind of support items, is like, you don't want to get too reliant on these. And I think, you know, All Might has that moment where it's like, that might have come from a place of privilege, right? Because he was this all-powerful being, and he personally had a hindrance with kind of support items. But now that's all he's got at this point, which I think is a fun, cool perspective. And I also love is like, yeah, all the money I've saved is going into this fucking suit, man. It's crazy.
We're gonna buy this. Yeah, it was a cool little setup at the end of like everybody. They both have their own battles, and they're gonna fight it out themselves. And we're gonna see these two go at it. And it's probably. Yeah. I don't know. You know, maybe I'm jumping to the conclusions, but it will be the end of All Might, right? Like these two will probably end each other.
He has that thought where he thinks back to Night Eye, and he's like, Night Eye predicted that I'm going to have a bloody death with a villain, and this is probably it.
He doesn't. I mean, yeah, we're talking about just a normal jabroni now, right? He's not the All Might that we know anymore. He's got the suit, so yeah, it is cool that he. I mean, what an ending. To jump in, and then also LeBrava, like, we streaming this too.
Yeah.
Like, we
I love that conversation,
this.
and I love that she clocked that because, you know, I'm blanking on the police guy that All Might is friends with, but he's like, don't stream this, don't show this, because this is him delaying the inevitable. Yeah. And she's like, you fucking sure about that? And like All Might having the fucking bar of a line where he's like, I have never thought going into a fight that I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
And he does the psycho laugh. Like, I have not, you know, we don't have the dubbed episode yet, but like the Japanese voice actor doing kind of a psycho All Might laugh, and you're like, oh, this dude's fucking crazy. And I think it really just like cements who he is as a character, because he is kind of crazy. And they showcase that so well when you get the flashback of him meeting Nana for the first time. And it's like, she's like, dude, this guy's crazy. But maybe we need this. Maybe we need this type of crazy to like help bring this country together. You know,
it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good.
It's a good finale. It's a good setup of like, hey, final season. We know what's at stake. We know who's still on the board. We know who we're looking at.
So here we go. We've got 32 chapters of the manga left.
Okay.
So for the final season, if my mathin' is mathin' right, we're gonna get roughly 10 or 11 episodes left.
Perfect.
So with that knowledge, Mike, how are your feelings? What are your feelings going into the final season that'll come out next year? What are any questions that you still have left? Is there anything specific you want to see going into the final season of My Hero Academia?
That's a great question. Yeah, what do I want to see out of this, right?
Because I know everything. I know where it's going to go. I know how it's going to end. Are the 6 other movies going to take place after? Or does the entire world get destroyed? Who knows?
That's crazy. It's crazy that we've also had, like, other countries just looking on. You know what I mean? It's like nobody wants to get involved.
But like it showcases, you know, maybe how fickle some leaderships are in some countries.
I mean, the only 2 questions that I have right now ending this, because it is the forefront, is Deku Shigaraki. Like, okay, show me what we got going on here, right? And then, of course, All Might and All for One, right? Like, I want to see the very best out of those 2. I would love to see All Might and All for One end very well, right? Because this is like a lot of history. Shigaraki and Midoriya, we've built the history on the show. So like, I know that, but I want to see the coolest fight out of the 2 of them. I also want to see like, At one point, I do want to see Shigaraki like totally shake it off and be himself. Maybe even get the hand back on his face again.
The hand was cool.
Because like, yo, that was some of the scariest stuff back in the day. Was that kid with the hand on his face?
Oh, you're the
old school,
the hand
bro.
mask.
Like,
Yeah.
that shit was crazy, man. I mean, what a way to end it if like he wins, hand on his face, and like just standing over Deku and boom, bro. That would be an insane ending, bro. I mean, my boy Hawks doesn't have his wings. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
I love Dark Shadow. I mean, he's beat down. It's like it's only those four that really matter at this point for me.
A fun little tidbit that I forgot is that this season also kind of reconfirms that the movies are canon. You know, we get shots of like Rhodey and his siblings.
Yes.
We get the two kids from the islands. The daughter who does all the tech stuff. She helped with the armored like All Might car and all that stuff. So it's like a little. There's like a question for years of like, are these considered canon? Does this actually fit in? And like this happened in the manga as well, where you see these panels, and it was like, no, like Horikoshi, the mangaka, like does consider these like important and vital and like part of a thing. And I think that might have been teased as well with Bakugo's episode where he dies and he sees like the wispy all one for all. And that's because he gets one for all for that final fight in.
Yes. I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's how my favorite movie ends.
Dude, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And so there might have been a little bit of like, because he had one for all for a second, but they forgot that they gave him one for all. Like maybe that's why he saw the All Might or whatever. But yeah. And so any other threads as we wrap up?
Can't. Not off the top of my head right now. It's tough. Of like there's just so much already happening and so much have already happened that it's like I worry that I don't want to get lost in the sauce. I don't want them to get lost in it.
Okay.
There's too many people here that can easily derail us for an episode to 2 when it probably should just be give me the most.
Especially when we only have 10 to 11 left.
Give me the very best ending possible because all of us, we could go take a hard left and it's like, oh, 2 episodes just got burnt on some bullshit.
Yeah. And so I popped when it said final season.
That was dope.
Because we had the question last episode of like, do they end it with a movie, all this stuff? Again, with what My Hero has left to adapt, I think what they have left to adapt would have been weird formatting wise for a movie in terms of like pacing for a movie and all that stuff. So I personally think it was the right call to end with a season. Definitely a much shorter season for sure, because I think that'll be better pacing wise in an episodic nature. And so, yeah, it's crazy that we're kind of already here at the end of My Hero, right? Next year, which is crazy.
That's going to be awesome.
And stay tuned next year for, you know, more kind of anime covering My Hero Academia. Obviously, we'll try to keep up to date with some other shows.
I
and
like
all that
when
stuff.
the audience gives us recommendations and you say, hey, Mike, like these are the 3 we're going to try. Like, I'm excited of like, as you said, right? Like one of our goats is going away and it's time to find something new, which means like
new stuff.
We'll get some new recommendations of like, let's try this or let's go deep into some crazy show.
So if you've made it, I'm going to assume at the end of this nearly 3-hour episode, let us know in the comments below. Give us your anime recommendations for next year, because this will be our final episode of the year. We'll definitely come back next year, definitely for the end of My Hero. Maybe we'll do a couple more episodes if we're feeling the passion of like, we have some fucking anime to talk about. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you so much again, Mikey, for joining me for another episode of Kinda Anime. Again, I was convinced a couple weeks ago. I was like, oh, this is going to be an hour-long episode. And then, of course, we have so much anime to talk about. And then we got hit up by Crunchyroll for this fantastic interview. Thank you to the people over at Crunchyroll. And thank you to Patrick, Jason, and David for taking their time to give a fun interview, which I'm sure I did not fuck up whatsoever. Thank y'all so much for another episode of Kinda Anime. We will see you next year. And until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.